Hello fellow global citizens. Do you have the moment to talk about veganism? The truly grassroots vegan revolution needs your help. The climate is changing and it won't stop until we all do what the good grown-ups on the TV tell us to do. If we all don't do exactly what big finance and the smart grown-ups at the UN, IMF, World Bank, big foundations and Fortune 100 say, this poor 16-year-old human shield won't get her future back. This is a real emergency and there is no time to ask questions.
What have you done to change your life? Like you said, you do things that you can do to look yourself in the eye and know you've done enough. What have you done?
I have stopped flying and I have gone vegan. I have a shop stop. It means you don't buy new things unless you absolutely have to.
Oh, hi there. It's Ellen DeGeneres here. I was scrolling through the gram and I noticed that a lot of people are talking about eating less meat, which I think is a fantastic idea. It's a great idea for the planet. It's a great idea for your health. It's a great idea for the animals' health. So eat less meat. Unless you're a vegan and you don't eat meat already, then good for you. So you don't even need to pay attention to this. But for the people who do eat meat, just try to eat less of it. Maybe eat it less, once a week, or none a week, or just, like if you eat it every night, don't eat it every night. Eat it less than that. 4 nights a week would be okay, but like 3 or 2 nights or just 1 night a week would be the best. Anyway, the point is it's better for you and it's better for the environment and for the animals. Eat less meat. Hashtag eat less meat. Hey, be neat. No meat. Be neat. Eat less meat. Hashtag be neat. Eat less meat. Hashtag bye-bye.
I believe we need to reallocate the world's resources because sharing is crucial. The climate crisis is a battle for solidarity, a battle for human rights and children's rights.
I feel so powerful knowing that Ellen DeGeneres and courageous 16-year-old human shield Greta are also vegan activists saving the planet with me. The UN needs to reallocate all the world's land and resources. The science is clear. The smart adults from science say that the global megacorporations in the World Business Council for Sustainable Development like Bayer, Monsanto, Unilever, Cargill, Shell, IKEA, Nestle, in the good philanthropists at the Rockefeller Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation, the World Resources Institute, the IMF and the World Bank will all help reallocate all the world's land and resources and ration us sustainable nutrient-fortified plant-based kibble so we can stop off-gassing toxic CO2 and polluting the world with toxic human babies. The British royal family, close friends of philanthropists Jimmy Savile and Jeffrey Epstein, just want to help us reallocate the world's resources to save us from the climate.
With all of that activism, some might think you'd be exhausted. But look at you and listen to you, you know the secret. That in giving back, in fighting the good fight, it doesn't exhaust you, it energizes you.
This is an emergency and we must do this now.
Climate change is a humanitarian issue, not a political one.
The transnational corporations, banks, and philanthropists like the UN, the royal family, Jimmy Savile, and Jeffrey Epstein need to reallocate the world's resources and feed us nutrient-fortified plant-based kibble to make everything happy and equal. Being vegan is so easy and healthy. I am not a bigot. I will do this for the planet and the children. Let's take a look at vegan YouTube for some recipes for sustainable vegan cuisine we can eat in order to save Mommy Earth from the real credible death threats from the climate.
How to do vegan in a food court. Everyone's got a food court in a shopping mall near you. Let's do one here. Let's go.
I am so empowered as a member of this truly grassroots and not corporate-controlled revolution for the animals and the planet against the bigot science deniers who won't obey the good grown-ups on the TV.
Vegan pretzel available here. Okay, now most food courts are pretty much the same, alright? Now first off on the left, sushi. If you find any sushi place, they do vegan sushi at every single sushi place. You make sure they don't put mayonnaise or anything that's not vegan, any sort of weird fish stuff on there.
Weird fish stuff and real animal foods are so mean and bad and don't belong on my vegan soy sushi.
Suffocated and stabbed to death, hacked up into pieces to be put in sushi, when you can have vegetables in sushi, tofu in sushi, so many things you can have in sushi that...
There are so many good nice things made of soy that we can have instead of bad, mean, gross, racist real foods.
Why choose rotting dead fish when you can have vegan sushi? Boom, straight away, a vegan box. Most places do a vegan box now. You don't want to eat any murdered fish here. Look, mercury, fish, suffering, death, no point. A vegan box, delicious, look at that one. Really good. You can always get edamame beans as well. A little seaweed salad as well. Or you can ask them to prepare you some vegan sushi. Amazing. Sushi
Animal
is a really
foods
good
so
vegan
gross,
option.
so sad, so bad. Soy replacements so happy, so tolerant, so good.
Sushi place will always look after you. All right, let's go.
It is so much more healthy and sustainable to eat tofu made from mass-produced GMO Monsanto soy grown by some of the extra people in South America living under a puppet government military dictatorship, funded by massive IMF loans given under the condition that all the extra rural people there grow patented GMO soy and corn for export instead of their heritage crops and spray pesticides and herbicides like Roundup on all their soil and devalue their currency, so they become debt slaves and must sell their labor, land, and resources for cheap to the Fortune 100 companies and members of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, who can strip mine it then of their debt slaves, grow industrial soy to ship to China for processing into cheap Roundup fortified tofu kibble they can sell to social engineered, decadent, distracted, narcissistic Westerners who these transnational corporations and banks educated into thinking they're saving the planet by doing exactly what the big investment banks and transnational corporations tell the screens they worship to tell them to do.
You can easily have, instead of tandoori murdered animal, you could have tandoori tofu, tandoori seitan, you know, tandoori whatever other plant alternative other than pieces of flesh from an animal.
Purchasing this is powerful activism and will help the IMF give sustainable debt to all those extra rural people who grow my cheap food. The World Bank and transnational corporations are helping us help those extra South American and African debt slaves to go green and stop breathing toxic CO2 and killing and eating innocent animals, so we can all move into corporate-controlled total surveillance smart city coffin apartments and pay for our fortified vegan kibble, pharmaceutical drugs, and VR porn with social carbon credits to save the planet from the totally real and not made up #climate crisis.
Vegan, oh wow, oh no, this is veggie. Okay, so they've got it veggie and vegan separated, which is good. These are all the animal body parts that you don't want to be eating. Merry Christmas, not so merry for the animals. Let's have a look here. Oh, eggs are not vegan, obviously. Oh, here, look, avocado and toast. Wow, that looks really nice.
This jittery, effeminate 31-year-old boomer is so inspirational to me as a vegan activist. He is the best at purchasing vegan kibble. I wish everyone could know how good it feels to eat soy and corn-based vegan kibble instead of real animal foods. I do not even miss real animal foods. Real animal foods are mean and gross and not even good. Mass-produced vegan corporate kibble is way healthier and tastier and nicer and make me so happy. If we don't all do this, the climate will keep changing and all the bad things will happen and Bambi and Simba will be murdered every day always.
Any of these cakes vegan? Oh my god, those cookies are. Oh no, that says veggie, not vegan, so I was just seeing that these are vegan.
Only one is optional.
Oh wow, oh awesome, yeah, that's cool. Can I just have these, please? Thank you very much, Ta. Bye-bye. Still a little taste test of this soup. Oh my lord. That's amazing. Wow.
What's your view? I can't think of a better thing for the animal rights movement, to be honest, bro.
I think one of the biggest issues with people going vegan is also the convenience factor.
Yeah.
It's too hard. What am I going to do? This is where I eat. I go to this supermarket, I go to this restaurant, I get this fast food. Like, they don't have
I am
vegan
not
stuff
being
there.
used. I am a grassroots activist saving the animals and the planet. I have not been duped.
Beyond Burger in all of their stores, and they advertised it every store I drive past, huge billboards on the highway. I'm like, plant-based meat options, this is amazing. Wow, they're really normalizing it. The convenience factor is through the roof.
Yeah.
Incredible, I'm so
Huge.
happy. Absolutely, and they're selling out of it.
Yeah.
So that's Tim Hortons. They did the same at A&W.
Veganism is healthy and rebellious. Animal foods are not necessary. All our ancestors just ate them because the patriarchy and capitalism. 12 bowel movements a day is normal and enjoyable. Soy is a great replacement for everything. Dr. Greger is not frightening. If we don't all do this, the planet will die. Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide and was working all alone. If I spend more energy on vegan activism, I will stop craving real animal foods and questioning myself.
They go with their vegan friend. The vegan friend suggests, why don't you just try it? Try this. People start seeing, oh, this is delicious, and I feel pretty good that it isn't actually an animal. I don't like causing animal cruelty. I heard these are healthier as well. They're better for the planet too. They have just as much protein.
It's huge.
Makes a lot of sense.
It's huge. They have millions of dollars in marketing. They have restaurants all over the world. They can reach the mainstream like no other.
They're doing all the advertising for us,
Yeah.
man. I'm like, thanks for spreading the vegan message for us. I'm so stoked.
But I saw the same people who are emotionally against KFC would happily walk into Starbucks and get the oat latte. And I'm like, wait a second.
These vegan activists are mentally and physically healthy and are not sickly. Effeminate head case is being used by multinational corporations, global banks, and big money foundations to push a transnational resource consolidation agenda.
I want to reach those low-income families that are just eating meat. They never heard of vegan before, and they walk into McDonald's and there's a McVegan there.
Totally.
And they can choose that over the slaughtered, enslaved dairy cow's body that's minced up in the other burgers, you know?
Absolutely, man. And I think that, yes, KFC, they kill so many dead chickens, millions, tens of millions. It's horrific.
Yeah.
But if anyone can change, anyone, slaughterhouse workers change, we change, people change, businesses change too.
And if I was to like, you can't support KFC, you must only, I just think like, we're not in a position to have that flexibility to go, you can only buy vegan food from here. We need people buying vegan food from wherever it's available. The world's like, oh God, we need radical change. We need radical change. We need people working from below. We need direct action from above. We need corporations putting on vegan options. We need everything working together.
The money is there. If we can save the banks, then we can save the world. I mean... if there's something we are not lacking in this world, it's money.
Long time coming, this stream. It's been a long time coming. But it's finally here. I'm here with Jay Dyer. Jay, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Jay? Jay's in the background there. I can hear him shuffling around. He'll be here in a second. What's up, guys? Got a bunch of people waiting. 130 people waiting right now. All right, if you guys have issues, just refresh it. Sometimes you might get buffering issues. Yesterday, we tried to do this. Yesterday, but there was an issue with the fiber optic. Allegedly, there was a car accident, and it wrecked the fiber optic cable. What timing, right? What timing. But I'm here. I got Jay Dyer queued up. Jay Dyer's about to jump in. And we are talking today about why veganism is a moral obligation. Veganism, a moral obligation. Is veganism a moral obligation? Are we all morally obliged to be vegan? We're going to talk about the vegan worldview. We're going to talk about some of these arguments that vegans make. We're going to talk about some of the vegan debate tactics. And I know Jay, can you hear me? You there, man? Where you at, Jay? Jay's queued up. Don't worry, guys. We had a little bit of a misunderstanding on the time zones. But Jay's here right now. Let's see if I can pull Jay up. Nope. All right, we got a bunch of people in the chat. What's up, Carnival? We've got Norwegian News in the chat. You guys make sure to check out his channel. We got a bunch of the usuals up in the chat today. We got a lot of changes going on with the Primal Edge Health channel here. As you can see, I'm in my new, my studio, my office. The acoustics aren't perfect because I got high ceilings. Check it out. I like the ceilings. They're real pretty. High ceilings, not the best acoustics, but we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll get some stuff on the walls there. Might put some wood panels up on the wall. Maybe get some sheep skins. That'd be nice if I could get a bunch of alpaca skins. Anybody want to donate a whole room full of alpaca skins? I will happily accept that donation to get the audio good in here. All right. So, today we're talking about veganism. Is veganism a moral obligation, or is veganism a cultural virus? Is it a moral obligation or cultural virus? I think it's kind of funny when we see some of these vegan activists as like those guys, James Aspie and Joey Carbstrong there, applauding KFC, right? These people believe that there's an animal holocaust. And they use this language very regularly. There's an animal holocaust going on. There is an animal holocaust happening. We need total animal liberation now. Total animal liberation now. But how great is it that KFC, literally Hitler of the animal holocaust, that KFC will sell us plant-based kibble? How lovely. Waiting for Jay. I heard him. I think he's pouring some coffee now. There he goes. He was pouring some coffee. He's going to show up in just a minute. So, veganism as a moral obligation or a cultural virus. Now, obviously, we believe that animal foods are absolutely crucial. And even vegans believe that animal foods are absolutely crucial. Right? Vegans will even admit that there are nutrients that they're not able to obtain from a vegan diet, namely vitamin B12. A lot of them have to supplement things like zinc. It's very deficient in heme iron, right? Bioavailable iron that's actually digestible and assimilable by humans. They admit this readily. They admit that the vegan diet is nutrient deficient. They admit that you require animal foods if you're not going to be living off of supplements. And some of these vegan doctors even talk about the dangers of supplementation. They talk about how you don't want to be on pills the rest of your life as a way to try and sell the vegan diet. Right, there was a video on, was it Vegan Phobic, I think is his channel. He made a mashup video of some of these vegan doctors talking about how we should all go vegan, we should all change our diet so that we can actually be healthy and not have to be on pharmaceutical drugs and pills. All right, well, as I absolutely agree that we shouldn't all be on pharmaceutical drugs and pills, it's so funny because out of one side of their mouth, they're going to tell you, we shouldn't have to take pills to stay alive. We shouldn't have to take pills for our health. We should be able to manage our health using dietary changes, using lifestyle changes. A lot of them promote what's called lifestyle medicine, but actually lifestyle medicine, the groups that promote this, are actually funded by Seventh-day Adventists, a religious group, a religious cult, a New Age religious cult that's been around since the 1800s, is based off of channeling ghosts. Right? Ellen G. White used to go into trances. Her eyes would roll back in the back of her head. She's just frying out in trances, learning from the spirits what we should eat. All right, the Seventh-day Adventists fund lifestyle medicine. The lifestyle medicine movement is also promoted by companies like Coca-Cola. Right? But then these same doctors who say we should use lifestyle medicine to get off of pharmaceutical drugs, you know what they'll say? They'll say you've got to take vitamin B12 on your vegan diet because they admit that it's nutrient deficient. They admit that the vegan diet has inherent nutrient deficiencies. How's my connection, by the way? I got a message that it cut out for a second from YouTube. I got a new fiber optic line. It's been a little bit shoddy the last couple days. We tried to do the stream yesterday and it totally cut out. I think it's good. I think we're good now. If it does start to load, just refresh the page. All right, let me come over here to the chat and see what's going on here. Talk to the chat a little bit. People say the connection is good. The Norwegian News says vegan baby killers. I mean, this is another thing, right? I mean, these people, they talk about speciesism. They make arguments like, well, we're all just animals, which we're going to get into that one. They make arguments like, we're all just animals, we're all the same. Rizza says, we are all the same, dog. Yo, Wu-Tang for the children, we all the same. We all just rats and crickets and cows, yo. He did a PETA ad. I would show the PETA ad right now, but last time I showed that ad, I actually got a copyright claim filed against the video. They'll say, we're all the same. We're all just animals. Yet in their worldview, they want to hold human beings morally responsible for not eating animals, but they don't want to hold animals responsible for what they consider murder. They say it's murder to kill and eat animals. It's murder to kill and eat animals. Yet how do they fight against these mass murderers? How do they fight against the so-called animal holocaust that they claim they believe in? Well, they buy vegan kibble from KFC. They buy vegan kibble from KFC and they LARP online like activists and call people murderers. If you really believed that we were murderers, if you really believed this, wouldn't you do more? Wouldn't you actually do something to stop it rather than just babbling about it online? I mean, there's so many ways in which their arguments fall apart. There's so many ways that you can attack these vegan arguments. The most important thing, in my opinion, is looking at their worldview, looking at the coherence of their worldview, because their worldview is incoherent. And it falls apart and it crumbles in the weight of their own claims. So Jay Dyer, the guest today, he's really good at breaking down worldviews, at looking at the basic presuppositions of worldviews, and he's done some great debates on it in the past, so he's a great candidate to talk about this stuff. Jay, where you at, dude? Where you at, man? All right. We'll see if we can get Jay back in here. I might just have to do this as a solo stream, guys. He's in my chat. All right, so let me come over here to or he's in my Zoom. We got a Zoom meeting right now. He's here. Don't worry, it's not just me. It's not just me, guys. All right, let me come over here to the chat. How many animals are poisoned and hunted for plant ag? I mean, that's another thing. They don't want to be consistent about that at all. They don't want animals to die. They believe it's murder. They believe meat is murder. Yet how are they going to stop it? They're going to call you names online. How are they going to stop it? They're going to eat vegan KFC instead. What's up, Jay Dyer? What's cracking, man? Good to have you here. We got Jay Dyer here, everybody. Jay Dyer's in the house. Let's get an audio check. Somebody in the audience, maybe Norwegian News, can you let us know if our audio levels are unequal and tell me who to turn up or who to turn down, just so we can make sure everything's good for the audience. Welcome, Jay Dyer.
You got to pick up every stitch. It's the season of the witch.
You have a beautiful... Has anybody ever told you have the voice of an angel?
Yes.
I'm sure. Okay. I'm sure.
I open my morning window and I do that every morning. I say, and I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I...
What's the next one?
What's going on? Every one of my neighbors follows into a line and comes along and says, Mr. Dyer, you have the voice of an angel.
No, well, first all the neighbors have to go, and I said, hey, yeah, hey, yeah. I said, hey, yeah.
What's going on?
There we go. We're just gonna do 90s jukebox today. We're gonna sing Creed songs together. Can you take me higher to a place where I may see? There we go.
It's gonna change. With arms wide open.
Under the sunlight. Welcome to the place. I'll tell you everything. You're welcome, everybody. You're welcome. All right, that's it. We're done. We'll see you guys next time. Stream's over.
I have a whole. I could do more. We could do live.
Veganism refuted, debunked. We're done. Mic drop. All right, guys. So we finally got Jay here. Jay, how you doing, man? What's new with you? What's new on the Jay Dyer channel?
Nothing. I was just trying to jump up, rush, and I was gonna quote the Rebecca Black. How's the Rebecca Black song go about? Gotta get downstairs. Gotta have my cereal. Gotta.
I know that song. I don't know that one.
Huh?
Nope. I don't know that one. Someone says this is trauma.
Yeah, you do. Friday by Rebecca Black. You know that. It's like the most infamous, worst internet song of all time.
I'll have to look it up, man. I'm sorry. I blew it. My my repertoire is like 90s songs, some early 2000s. I mean, we could sing some more Creed if you want. Some Blind Melon.
We don't have to sing. We don't have to sing. I know you gotta.
And all I could say is that my life is pretty plain. I like
the angel opens her eyes, pale blue colored eyes.
Lightning crashes, a new mother cries. Oh, I feel it coming back again.
And how come everybody in the 90s sung like that?
Creed was the last one. He was the last one to hold out. He was until
Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots, everybody sung like that. Even Hootie. Even Hootie sung that way.
I try to think of a Hootie sound. Or of a Hootie song, rather. What was a Hootie song?
Hold my hand.
Alanis Morissette. Remember Alanis?
She went in the back to get high. I sat on the roof and just cried and felt sorry for myself. Let her cry as the tears roll down that way. Yo, Hootie.
That was beautiful.
Let Tristan cry.
All right. That's enough of that. You guys, we're here to debunk some of the most common vegan arguments. I know Jay took extensive notes, and we started doing this yesterday, but we got rudely cut off by allegedly a car accident that ran into my fiber optic cable, is what I've been told. But, you know, who knows? Who knows? So, but today we're going to talk about all this vegan argument madness, and let me actually got to adjust the window here.
Can I quote one last thing before we move on to the seriousness?
Absolutely. Can you sing it?
I found it, yes. 7 a.m. waking up in the morning, gotta be fresh, gotta go downstairs, gotta have my bowl, gotta have cereal, seeing everything, the time is going, ticking on and on. Everybody's rushing, gotta get down to the bus stop, gotta catch my bus, gotta see my friends, kicking in the front seat, sitting in the back seat, gotta make up my mind, which seat can I take?
Damn, dude.
Rebecca Black.
Wow. Okay.
You gotta watch that. Yeah, you gotta watch that video if you've never seen that. I sent it to you. You can do it later, but
yeah, I don't have to do it right now.
She's known as having the worst song of all time, and it has like 150 billion views.
I like it. Like I said, man, the voice of an angel. There's probably some recruiters from Hollywood in the chat right now who are just.
Who do I have to sleep with? Who do I have to sleep with to get my contract?
Show us that. Can I see that shirt, dude? All I see is the Pee Wee He-Man.
I'm sorry. Text. This is the shout out to Jim Bob. This is one of Jim Bob's designs.
Dude, and that's sick.
Pee Wee He-Man, made by Jim Bob.
You guys find Made by Jim Bob on Instagram. Made by Jim Bob at Made by Jim Bob. He's got a great Instagram. Great cartoonist. Funny dude.
And yes, it's the same shirt I had on last night. So.
Yeah. There you go. I have the same headphones I wore last night too.
Okay, so I got my logical fallacies chart. I'm ready. We're all ready to look at the vegan arguments.
There we go. We're going to look at the vegan logical fallacies today, the common vegan arguments. Because we're all just animals, bro, right? We're all just animals. We're all the same. I've got Vegan Foot Soldier, who I had a debate with Vegan Foot Soldier, a friendly discussion debate a while ago. I've got a picture of from his Instagram right here, Vegan Foot Soldier, showing his KFC, his vegan kibble from KFC. Because, of course, the best way to fight the animal holocaust is to buy plant-based kibble from literally Hitler, Colonel Sanders. Yeah.
Dude, if you took off the glasses and if you got rid of that goatee of Colonel Sanders, it would kind of be a...
Look like me.
Actually, Colonel Sanders, did you notice that he made him look like a hipster? He's like a hipster.
Oh, he's got the wine mom haircut.
He's got a wine mom haircut. He's got the hipster glasses and some kind of weird goatee. And he's got this bow tie. He's not actually a colonel from the Civil War. He's just like a hipster douchebag.
Yeah, well, in like 3 years, he'll be a lesbian... he'll be a lesbian cat woman, a cat lady.
if he just got rid of the goatee, he would look like a social justice lesbian. Then they can convert all of KFC into like a vegan.
Yeah. Well, that seems to be the name of the game now, right? Just the vegan junk food is going to save the world. The Beyond Burgers are going to save the world. This is how we're going to do it. So let's see. I've got a. Let me pull up. We started yesterday. We showed a couple pictures from PETA, everybody's favorite animal rights organization. What rights should animals have? Says this article from PETA. PETA likes to put out ads like this one with Joaquin Phoenix, and it says right here, let me move it on the screen. We are all animals. We are all animals, man, bro. We're all stardust.
We're all the same, yo.
We all the same, dog. Bonk, bonk. Wu-Tang for the children, old dirty bastard, R.I.P., rest in peace, my cousin, old dirty bastard.
So, I think what I was saying yesterday was that you get basically just a naturalistic assumption here is the first criticism I would make is the idea that because humans and animals share common characteristics, they must be the same. And you get this kind of argument with people like Ask Yourself will say things like, well, if you can't find for me some special naturalistic material trait that distinguishes an animal from a human, then if you're not going to eat a human, you shouldn't eat an animal because they're both, quote, sentient. So sentience becomes this special category. But as you pointed out, what exactly is sentience on a naturalistic worldview? We don't know. Nobody knows. The people who do philosophy of mind, the people who do consciousness from consciousness research and study from a materialistic standpoint cannot tell you. And typically they just don't think it's real. Most of the world who has that worldview just simply says there's not really consciousness. I mean, it's helpful maybe to think that we have consciousness or that we have a soul, a self, but there's not really a soul or a self. It's just this placeholder. It's just this false notion that we have, and what we are really experiencing is just the illusion of self-identity and consciousness, because your mind is just the process of an infinite regress of chemical reactions. So
right. And what they'll say is consciousness can be measured through neurotransmitters, right? So they're trying to link up causality with neurotransmitters. They'll say, well, because, look, we've got serotonin and dopamine receptors, and we've got electrical signals in the brain, therefore that's consciousness. Well, that's an assumption that's unproven and unprovable in their worldview.
It is,
as well.
but it's also still just part of the chemical determined process. So just it's like, a computer is firing, electrical impulses, signals. Electricity is going through my computer. It's still a determined process. That doesn't mean my computer has free will. And I mean, the people who have these kinds of worldviews, Daniel Dennett, they love to liken people to computers. You're just a determined machine. And the same way with this mindset is that you're just a biological machine, right? Yeah. So how do we get rights out of this? This was the key point I was just trying to stress yesterday, was that if that's the state of affairs, if that's what is, how do you get from an is to an ought? This is Hume's dilemma, because oughts are the domain of ethics. Is the domain of what we're saying exists, right? This is a metaphysical statement. Even if we don't believe in doing metaphysics, it is a metaphysical claim or statement that what exists is just natural, pure physicalism, naturalism, materialism.
So that's the assumption of a lot of people. That's kind of the normie worldview, right? We grow up with this assumption that, oh, you know, we're just cosmic pond scum that evolved from stardust, right? We're stardust farts that evolved out of the cosmic nothingness, out of the void, and we popped out of the yoni of nothingness, and now we are just these determined, completely determined robotic beings. So then, okay, so without even going to their presuppositions and picking apart the the silliness of the atheist materialistic worldview, if they assume that, aren't they being a little bit hypocritical by giving us moral agency? I mean, if we're just automatons, if we're just robotic beings, why should we be expected to do anything? Aren't we just acting out exactly what we're meant to act out? Isn't it all just predetermined? We're just billiard balls bouncing around in a cold, meaningless universe?
Absolutely. You would have the ultimate leveling of all states of affairs. So what happens just happens. One event or phenomena is not better or worse than some other event. They just are. So when we start saying that you should do this or this is better than that, we're immediately bringing in these categories, these notions that are ethical and metaphysical. Because if you want to talk about the good, what's good for a being, what's good for a quote species or whatever, that's a metaphysical thing. It's not we don't have any self-evident notion of what the good is in that worldview. We need to know what is the good. Is the good to depopulate most of the human species? Yes. Or is that the best for the elite? Should we take the top, highest IQ vegans, what that would be? What are there any of those? I don't know.
Vegan gains, and ask yourself. Yeah.
So ask yourself in vegan gains, the last two people on Earth. Everybody else needs to die, right?
Yeah.
For the good of the Earth.
Obviously.
Is that the better option, or should we choose the largest number of vegans and spread the IQ spread across a...
Come on. Come back. Now we're back. All right. You know, every once in a while, I've got a hamster wheel. I've got so I've got a hamster wheel just full of hamsters, and sometimes they stop running, and that's when the internet cuts out, the fiber optic cuts out. So excuse the pause there. So this fallacy,
is ask yourself chewing on the cables to cut out your 56K.
Yeah, it was a little rat teeth. Yeah. So this is the I guess we can call this fallacy we are literally stardust evolved from cosmic pond scum in a cold, meaningless
the star
universe.
Fart fallacy. The star fart
Yes.
fallacy.
Where animate life evolved from inanimate matter and came from nothing and turned shrews into humans, so we must save evolution from climate change by aborting our babies fallacy. So, I mean, it's it's pretty ridiculous there. So we're just animals. If we're just animals, why is it okay for animals to eat other animals as well, right? It's like without even breaking apart the silliness of that.
So how do you know, right? So they'll reverse it, right? Like, oh, we shouldn't eat an animal because we don't eat humans. But if we are animals and animals eat animals, we should eat animals and humans.
Yeah. And then, and if you ask them that, very often they'll come back with, well, don't you just know what's inherently wrong? Don't you just feel it? Don't you just feel that that's wrong?
There's an appeal to emotion, and that's I want to mention that too, because I meant to mention that yesterday. The most common fallacy in these ads, and that you just mentioned there, is the very powerful, very prevalent. You see it everywhere in propaganda. It's the appeal to emotion. The greatest example of this is anytime there's a war coming or going, and you see some poor, it might not even be real. It could just be an image, right? A sad child crying, some child propped over on a battlefield, or a boy on covered in dusty boy. Oh, don't you care about the kids? And the immediate thing, if you do not agree with the poster's position, you want the kids to die. You hate the troops. You hate this situation, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Exact same with just lowest IQ, most basic level of propaganda that you see with this vegan stuff is appeal to emotions. And because most human beings are going to be manipulated by their emotions, they're not going to think about these situations rationally. They're going to react. There's a reactionary, start crying or whatever. Oh, you see, there you go. Right.
Exactly.
Was she in a cage? Was she in a cage?
That's Chili from TLC. Poor Chili from TLC is just being so tortured here in this cage. All right, so I mean, the appeal to emotion, like look what they're doing to these poor chickens. What if that was your mother? What if your mother was that chicken that's being, ground up by Colonel Sanders in his giant Holocaust factories? And I mean, simply appealing to emotion, simply because something gives you an emotional feeling, doesn't mean it's right or wrong inherently. That doesn't make something objectively right or wrong, right? I mean, you can take a dog, right? And every time you ring a bell, say you have a dog and you're training it with an electronic collar, right? You can make it to where every time you go to give that dog some love or pet it, you shock it, right? And people have done experiments like this on humans, actually. When you look at the MK Ultra and the behaviorist experiments and Skinner and some of these other people, there's been some horrible experiments done on children and people. But you can program somebody or a being to have an emotional feeling in reaction to any stimulus you choose using operant conditioning. So does that make it right or wrong because you feel something is right or wrong? Absolutely not. Media can make you feel that it's wrong to love your partner, right? When you watch like THX 1138, they were made to feel like it was totally wrong to have any human contact, right? It was this dystopian film that Jay and I did a kind of a review on back in the day. You can check that stream out, guys.
Yeah, these tests, these Pavlov tests were also done on Will Smith because he sung the song "You Can Ring My Bell." That's about Pavlov's dogs. I'm joking. That was a dumb joke. You can ring my bell. All right. Yeah. So anyway, yes, this is what you see everywhere, and keep in mind that most of the usage of fallacies, especially in propaganda or psychological warfare, it's always going to be the lowest level, simplest stuff, because anytime things get complicated, most people are going to tune out. So just use the simplest stuff, right? Appeal to the basest desires that you see. I mean, this ad has an element of sexuality to it, right?
Yeah, they always do that.
Right. So you've got the Pamela Anderson one. She's the buxom blonde, and she's all drawn up. Feel bad for her, because would you want Pamela Anderson being chopped up? How are you going to have your porn if or your prawn, excuse me, if she's chopped up, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're going to get your cummies.
If you see this creature, you wouldn't want that creature chopped up. Why would you want Bambi chopped up, right?
Yeah. So I mean, so not only is it completely fallacious, right? It not only are humans not inherently the same as animals just because you claim they are, just because you say they are, or just because they could be biologically classified as such in these, biological classification symptoms. That doesn't necessarily make it objectively true in a universal sense, right? So this is why it's really hard, I think, for people coming from that materialistic atheist worldview to refute any of this, or even refute anything or make a coherent argument for or against anything at all. Is because from the materialistic atheist worldview, you believe this. That's your basic presupposition, is that we're all just beasts, we're all just animals, we're all the same. So it's very hard for them to refute that. Right. And I think I mentioned yesterday, this is like the parts to whole fallacy, right? So the idea that because there's some characteristics that are similar, then therefore they must be exactly the same. So animals have some characteristics biologically the same as humans. So therefore humans and animals are only in the same category, or only in the same species, or only distinguished by sort of arbitrary characteristics. Ultimately, we're just the same. Humans are just a little more complex animals, maybe not even more complex. Maybe we're just shaped differently, right? Yeah.
But that's a fallacy, because just because we share some characteristics doesn't mean that we are part of exactly the same whole. We do share some characteristics, but we also share a lot of very important dissimilar characteristics. For example, humans have the ability to reason, to do logic. And yes, I understand certain animals can have some basic cognitive functions, but it's certainly not the same thing as a human being. And we would agree with the notion of humans possessing a faculty of reason. Animals do not possess the faculty of reason. And so all the way back to the history of philosophy, even the Greek philosophers noticed this, that humans have this faculty of being able to reason, to make moral judgments. So the irony here is that, so you see that basically there's two conflicting things going on here, and multiple fallacies at work.
Yeah. I think we might have cut out there for a second. When I watched you guys, did you have to refresh at all there? I hope you guys didn't miss some of that. It might be okay. We got some super chats too. Thanks you guys for throwing the super chats. It's always helpful. That does help us out here. Let me pull up.
Throw some more super chats and help Tristan get his dial up fixed.
All right, get my dial up. I need a new modem, dogs. I need a new modem. All right, so let's read some of these super chats. Well, first of all, yesterday we had some super chats. Doth4580 sent 20 euros. Thanks, man. Sorry for the failed stream yesterday. We got Moses said, I appreciate the trouble you guys go to keep these discussions going. Blessed Lent. Right on, man. God bless. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. We've got $5 super chat today from Salvador. Oh, my goodness. It's funny because Zoom comes through, but then the live streaming cuts out. There we go. All right, cutting in and out a little bit. Who knows what's going on here? Alley Cat sends $9.99. Thank you so much, Alley Cat. Really appreciate that. We got $5 sticker from Sherry. Thanks a lot. And then Del Bridge sends $5. Says, if no absolutes exist, why do vegans claim that not consuming animals is an absolute moral responsibility? It seems oxymoronic to me. Well, yeah, I mean, that's something that you always want to ask them. You always want to ask somebody who's trying to make a moral argument, do you believe that morality is objective or subjective? For me, that's where I usually will start with a conversation like this. What do you think about that, Jay?
Yeah, the easiest way to approach this question, you don't have to get into the more dense philosophy, is that you can just keep it on the ethical level and just ask the question of, on what basis do we say this is right or wrong? On what basis are we saying that you should do this, you should not do that? And when people of that persuasion that you're arguing with, typically they'll just make really basic mistakes and they'll just say, because that's what's right, because that's what's the best, because we all know that's right.
Yeah, you feel it, man. You feel
those are that's called being arbitrary, circular, and ad hoc, and those are also fallacies.
There we go. Telegram. We got Telegram group Eastern Orthodox chat says get on Telegram. Let's see, you guys. If you guys are in the chat watching, are we getting buffering? You guys getting buffering or errors at all?
It's back now.
We're back. All right, guys. Stream's getting garbled a lot. Man. For how much I paid to get this fiber optic installed and to get this internet working, this is quite frustrating. Excuse me, guys. Sorry about the cutting out.
Yo, I'm starting to think you work with Ask Yourself Vegan Games to destroy me, dude. I think y'all are teamed. You in cahoots.
That's right. If it's buffering, you guys just refresh the page and it should go back to it should be good. I think we're good now, though. All right, so hay unos problemas otra vez. Está cortando bastante. Está saliendo mucho. Por favor, si puedes ayudarme. No sé qué es el problema, pero está muy malo ahora. Yo tengo un trabajo muy importante y está muy malo. Por favor, ayúdame. All right. I think we're back.
You just blew my mind right there. I don't even know what you did.
That was German. I was speaking German. That was like Pig Latin, actually. I'm really good at Pig Latin.
You're in some Pentecostal cult down there. You were just talking in tongues.
I'm speaking in tongues.
You're like,
That's true. That's true. How do you counter the philosophy of spiritual vegans and vegetarians? Those that claim consuming animals accumulates negative karma. All right. So a lot of these people, some of them don't come from this presupposition of absolute absolutely material world. Some of them do come from this so-called spiritual perspective, right? So they'll say something like, hey, I'm really spiritual, man. I'm not trying to consume the suffering and the death of that animal flesh, right? So this is a very different direction that the conversation would go if you're having a conversation with somebody like that. Jay, how would you approach a conversation as such?
I would say that, I'm sorry, I got distracted. I have drama going on here and I'm trying to shut that down. Can you repeat the question real quick?
How do you, so people that are coming from this kind of like monist perspective, we're all one, karma, yeah.
I would say, first of all, how do we know that this is operant in the world? I would ask that question. I would say, why do you think that? Not necessarily saying that it doesn't, But why do you think that there is some sort of retribution that goes on for our actions?
Well, they would say, well, it's impaired. It's so obvious, like if you drop a ball on your foot, it's going to hurt. That proves karma.
Okay, but sometimes it's not obvious, right? Like sometimes we don't see justice come about when we expect it. So if we, so if we dropped a bowling ball on our foot and we felt pain, then why are we interpreting that as like punishment for some? I mean, how do we know that that's punishment for a past life, for the cuss word that we said 2 days before? I mean, there's no way really to know what actions are corresponding to what. So there's just this vague sense that there's like a cosmic karma. But here's my point on that is just simply to say the idea that all of these actions are ordered in some meaningful way to punishments or blessings assumes the notion of like a divinity. It would assume the notion of a mind who is recompensing these actions. And so that assumes that there's an intentional, personal, divine mind that's behind this. And so an impersonal force can't met out what is right and wrong and fair and unfair in these cases. It makes no sense, because if it's just impersonal forces, you don't think about the law of gravity, or the number 7. The number 7 doesn't give you justice. The law of gravity doesn't give you justice.
Right.
So if you conceive of karma, quote unquote, as if it was directed by some personal agent or deity, then that's actually moving away from karma.
And so it's almost like these people are trying to put moral agency to like physical,
an impersonal force,
right? Physical laws, right? Let's moralize physical laws, which makes no sense.
Yeah, the law of gravity is not your friend or your enemy. It just is.
Right, and well, it's funny because the materialistic worldview.
You just sucked down a bottle of vodka?
Yeah.
It looks like.
No, it's water. It's like mineral water. It's like kind of like Pellegrino or something.
Is that Buttigieg? Is that Buttigieg's water?
That's like a German word, actually. Guitig.
Oh.
Guitig.
Yeah, Tristan's drinking Buttigieg's water.
Yeah. So, all right. So, it's funny because materialism, like the atheist materialistic worldview, does have a lot of similarities and a lot of cross-pollination with ideas from Eastern mysticism, right? Like from Hinduism and Buddhism.
Yeah, Dawkins even says that he's perfectly fine with pantheism. And a lot of those ancient Near Eastern philosophies are essentially pantheism. Everything is God, dude. Like everything is God, dude.
Well, Darwinism essentially is pantheism, right? Because if natural selection and the transmutation of species that they believe in, but if it's survival of the fittest, that's what determines what survives. How do you know what is the fittest? Well, it's who survives. So all these forces like the weather, the sun, every single impersonal force that you can't control is essentially deified and to a certain extent is in control of your fate.
Yeah. And that's why ultimately guys like Sam Harris, those people, they will deny free will and moral agency. They'll just say it's kind of an illusion. I mean, maybe you need to be a, quote, good person for your own benefit, but what does that even mean to be a, quote, good person? We don't know. And it's all arbitrary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I got another image here of just Mama Earth, a woman as Mother Earth, right? So it's kind of the same thing, kind of that idea, the monism idea, where we're all one.
Gaia. We're all we are all scabs on the crust of Mother Earth's skin.
Yeah. And what's funny is materialism and Darwinism actually does lead to this pantheistic, polytheistic vision of life, where we're all part of this one great being. We're all just like atoms in the toenail of the great Joe Rogan. This kind of insane, nonsensical belief. And that's what we see spouted a lot by a lot of the more spiritual vegans, right? So on one hand, they're going to go for naturalistic arguments, right? Well, okay, so if you're going to be appealing to like what's natural, they'll say it's not natural for human beings to enslave an animal. Those animals want to live out their lives. They just want to live. They'll say something like, oh, you are enslaving it and you're hijacking its reproductive organs and you're exploiting this poor animal, and that's unnatural. Well, in their worldview, go ahead. In their worldview, what was I say is in their worldview, how do they know what's natural and what's not natural?
This is another fallacy. It's called the appeal to nature fallacy, right? Well, we all know what's natural, and it's just not natural to do that. But what we think is natural or unnatural is going to be determined by our overall worldview and governing presuppositions. So, this is a very common fallacy as well. You see this a lot in the quote science community, where they don't even know that they're committing a fallacy, but they're doing the appeal to nature fallacy. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what's funny is they'll call you out on the appeal to nature fallacy too. So when a lot of people, when somebody says, "Oh well, it's obviously our natural diet to eat meat," right? And I think that's a poor argument as well, right? Like I wouldn't make that argument, but people will say it's the human's nature to eat meat, and the vegans will say that's an appeal to nature fallacy. But then on the other hand, Joey Carbstrong will say, "Oh, it's disgusting. You're raping these cows. You're molesting their tits. You must." What does he say?
Cows are mean too.
So it's So they want it both ways, and if you can get them to show that they want it both ways, you've essentially helped them debunk themselves. You've showed them that they're being arbitrary, and that they're being inconsistent. Which is very,
One thing
very
I would
easy
say
to do.
too, if you're interacting with these people, it's always helpful from the outset to establish, because a lot of people they don't know any basic fallacies. They don't know anything about kind of basic reasoning. If you can establish from the outset where you get them to admit that should we be reasonable, should we be logical, and should we be coherent and avoid fallacies. If you can from the outset of the discussion, get them to admit that, even if they're not going to be consistent, they've at least admitted that they should be, and that will be in their mind to some degree. So they're going to be holding themselves. And if they later say something like, "Well, who says we have to be consistent about everything?" Well, you've pointed out that they're contradicting themselves. Right?
Absolutely. Well, also, it's funny because that argument of should we be consistent, if they're going to be arguing from the perspective of a morally subjective reality.
Right.
If they believe that everything is morally subjective, that there is no inherent right or wrong, there is no objective right and wrong, why should we be consistent? Right? There is no why, there is no should, you're not compelled to do anything in that kind of in that worldview. And this is kind of what happened with the Ask Yourself guy and Vegan Gains. If you guys go back a long time ago to that debate, it was an absolute joke. And he knew. So at least Ask Yourself is smart enough to know that he can't, in his worldview, say that you ought to do anything. Of course, he's arguing that you ought to be vegan, that everybody ought to be vegan the entire time with everybody else. But his argumentation only works on people who come from that materialistic, atheistic worldview, which is why he can't question the presuppositions of it, and which is why I think it's really important to go there. In certain contexts, it's not always, it can be exhausting to always go there whenever you get in an argument with somebody. But if you are comparing worldviews and you are talking about the basic presuppositions of the worldview, you do have to go there if you want to, win the argument and you want to actually stick with the truth and you want to actually bring everybody together with into a cohesive, coherent worldview, you kind of have to go there. Let me see here. So rights, what are animals' rights, right? So these people, they like to bring this up. We've got PETA here. PETA, they're saying animals have the right to equal consideration of their interests. For instance, a dog most certainly has an interest in not having pain inflicted on him or her unnecessarily. So this is like classic vegan rhetoric right here. Well, unnecessary suffering, unnecessary pain. Like we said earlier, how do you know what is necessary? Right? How do we determine what is necessary or unnecessary suffering or pain? Right? I mean, that's a question that always they kind of crumble under that because they can't objectively say what's necessary or unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, these positions are, as you said, grounded on the denial of objectivity as they constantly predicate objective claims and statements and truths and propositions. So yes, we want to always call that out, that like you can't have a view that's purely subjective in terms of morals and ethics being relative, and then turn around and try to force everybody into some radically ethical position. And this position is a radical ethical position. It's like a cult. It's like you called it vegangelicals, right? I mean, that's what they're doing here is proselytizing for this view. And that's the first place I would go, right? In this ad here that you've got, or this article you got pulled up. what is a right? I mean, what does this mean? Yeah, I mean, so ever since the Enlightenment, we've had our worldview in the West focused on rights, natural law, the rights of the individual, the right to private property, the right to this, that. I'm not saying that there aren't rights. I'm saying that the way that people determine these or talk about these or explain these is not self-evident. But most people don't even question this. They don't even think about it. What do you mean? Or what is a right? How do you determine it? How do you know it? What is it? Is it for everybody? Can you have them taken away? Is it granted to you by the government? I mean, these are basic questions that a lot of people don't even think about when they just use these slogans like, it's my right. It's my right to do this. It's my right to touch myself. It's my right to kill my baby. It's my right to do this. So it's all these rights that have absolutely no consistency. They're just arbitrary.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of Timothy Leary, who said, there's a famous quote where he was talking about convincing people to go crazy with drugs. He says, I couldn't get people to do acid until I convinced them that it was a right. He said, once I realized that I could sell things to people on the basis of a right, he said, then it took off.
He said, let me just correct to nitpick here, but it's even better than that. He said, until I told them that the government was trying to take away their right to do it.
Yes.
So that they felt like they were being rebellious. Oh, they're trying to take my rights. They're trying to take my rights to get mandatory vaccines. They're trying to take my rights to give my children to government.
To get my acid, my LSD.
Yeah, it's like, so if you tell somebody that someone's trying to take this right away,
and you'll notice how things, the way that they socially engineered society was by selling all of these things as rights, right? So the issue with RVW became rights. The issue with the drugs became rights, and now all of the human makeup stuff is now being sold as a right, and we're going to start seeing the cyborg stuff sold as right as well.
Yeah, that one's kind of freaky. That's going to be not only a human right, but also maybe it's everyone's right. Like maybe you're infringing on everyone else's right by not joining these movements. Maybe you're infringing on everyone's right by not taking certain pharmaceutical products into your body because you're going to be endangering them. So this is how you sell things to people, and this is how you social engineer people in doing this sort of stuff. We got some in the chat. Let's you're going to enjoy this one, Joe. We've got a highly intellectual called Toroidal Zeus in the chat. He says, I am strong carnivore, but I'm not a Christ cuck that believes that morality comes from God. Morality comes from your community. Culture equals moral code. Okay.
Yeah. So this is if you don't believe that morals are purely a subjective thing, the only other option is to think that they're a social construct, right? Of course, we can think of countless situations where in history, societies have constructed horrendous morals. So how do we know and how do we judge when situations are even socially speaking horrendous, right? I mean, if an Aztec civilization is sacrificing 10,000 people a day on their high holy days, is that cool for them, bro?
I guess that's what he's arguing. Yeah,
he went. So all right. So if you want to say that it's good for them to have that morality, and it's good at the same time for you to have a completely opposite morality, then you don't actually have a basis to say that moral relativism is good, because that's what the position is predicated on, right? So it's even in its starting point, if you say that all morals are socially constructed, you believe that that's universally true, and you also believe that that's a good, right? Because you're saying that people should follow this, or at least
that's where I was going to go with it, right? So you're saying that, oh, you guys are Christ cucks, right? Oh, you guys are all Christ cucks. I'm Mr. Edgy. I make my own.
So you shouldn't be a Christ cuck.
Yeah, you shouldn't. But what's wrong with that? What's wrong with being a Christ cuck, right? You evil Christ cucks destroyed my people, my pagan butt sex, says Ian Garrett and Zivo. But I mean, it's toroidal Zeus. I mean, it's kind of a poor argument, man. Moral code is moral.
Yeah, so all of the pagan worldviews will fall into a form of relativism, and then in order to refute things like Christianity that they don't like, they'll fall back on universal claims and universal arguments, universal logic, universal laws that they simultaneously deny because they reject all forms of universalism because that's part of some kind of plot to destroy their booty magic.
Yeah. So why is it so bad that all us Christ cucks, as you call us, are destroying?
Well, I mean, if our social construct says to take down all the pagan religions, he can't reject it because that's our social construct.
Well, what if pagan Zeus says this? I'm an atheist, bro. I don't believe in gods. I'm an atheist. And he says, I'm not a pagan. I'm an atheist. Well, we just talked about how actually atheism does lead to pantheism. You worship anything. You worship your idea of atheism. You think your idea of freedom, your idea of liberty, your idea of your ancestors. You worship all these things. You worship the sun, the moon, the stars, all these impersonal forces. Those are what are in control of you. If you're an atheist, materialist, you believe that the impersonal force of natural selection is in charge of you. So whoever decides to naturally select you in or out of existence is therefore your God in your worldview. They're above you and they rule you. So I mean, it's kind of self.
Yeah. Another way you can take that too is if he wants to play devil's advocate and say, well, I don't actually believe any of those things possess any deity. They're all just it's all just matter and motion, and I reject all that. Mm-hmm. Then all you have to do is say, look, are you saying ultimately that everything is meaningless in a grand sense? Most of the time they'll say, yeah, sure, I don't have a problem affirming that, and you're the weakling who just can't own up to the fact that everything is meaningless. All you have to do is say, well, if everything's meaningless, then your life is meaningless. And they'll say, yes, my life ultimately is meaningless. I'm not afraid of that. Then you just say, well, is today also meaningless? And are your sentences today meaningless? Yes. At that point, he's refuted himself.
All right. Well, someone else, we got Northman 007 says, we pagans was forced on Christianity. They screamed witches to our men and women and throw them on burning fires. Well, why is that bad? Why you believe that's bad? You believe that's wrong? Isn't everything subjective? And when it's might make, a lot of these pagans are also into might makes right. They read that book and they read a lot of the same literature that the guys in. It's funny because prison culture actually influences to a great extent the neo-pagan movement. They're reading books like the 48 Laws of Power. They're reading books like Might Makes Right, and a lot of these other books that the people that are in prison. Man, this is pissing me off. All right, it's back. What's up, everybody? Yeah, you can hear me, okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The voice is crazy, they say. Tristan sounds like Batman.
Yo, you sound like to me, you sound like this, dog. You about to start singing some Barry White here in a minute.
How's my sound? I'll ask Jessica. She's listening in the other room. I don't know what's going on here. All right, so he says my guy says está arreglando. He's fixing my internet apparently.
Sounds like you've been doing whippets. After you do a whippet, your voice is low for a bit.
Is it better now? Can you hear me now?
You sound fine. It's just you sound like you've been doing whippets.
I have been doing a lot of whippets. It's like 10 or 12 before every stream, man. I get high.
That's like the dumbest drug of all time. I remember
it's so stupid. I did whippets.
One time in high school, and it's like, I was so dizzy for like 20 seconds, dude. That was awesome.
I did whippets in college once, 2 times, and I remember it well. It was really stupid. It makes your voice get so weird. But I think we should be good. You guys hear me now? Is the voice still messed up? Jay says I sound fine now. Do I sound okay?
Not messed up. You sound like really low, like Barry White.
That's so weird. Let's see if I can mess with the voice meter.
It works, dude. It's actually kind of cool.
People keep complaining about it.
It's not the normal high-pitched Tristan that I'm used to.
My normal voice sounds like this. Is that better?
You had to stop sucking helium and start sucking whippets.
Hey guys, is that better? Does that sound normal?
If you just talk with the helium voice, then it'll sound normal to the audience.
Does this sound normal now? How's this sound now, Jay? I just adjusted my thing on the voice meter program.
Yeah, a little better.
All right, cool. Sorry for the audio issues, guys. Okay, perfect. They say. Oh, they're laughing about the helium. They say the helium voice is perfect.
Okay, I'll talk like this just to make up for the. If it makes my voice lower, I'll talk like a vegan.
I can try to do a vegan gaze impression.
Tristan did a voice cleanse to get rid of all his testosterone. I mean, a juice cleanse to get rid of his testosterone so he could impersonate Ask Yourself Better.
Okay. Well, all right. How's my voice now? Let's see what Jessica says. It just sounds like a different voice. I can understand you.
You sound like you have a cold. It's okay. Like everybody can understand you. It just sounds like you have a cold or something.
This is so weird. Hold on. What if maybe it's the gain or the pattern?
You sound fine, dude. I think it's the connection. Like if it's a little fast or slow, it'll kind of.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, whatever. We'll just move on.
Like we can understand what you're saying. It sounds fine. You just sound like you got very white voice.
I know everyone just keeps telling me in the chat. Jessica's telling me in the chat too. All right, whatever.
Can we make use of this while we got you? Could you sing Barry White for us, or do you not? Do you know any Barry White songs?
I'm trying to think of a Barry White song.
Never gonna give you up.
I don't know any Barry White songs that well, except for I can't think of a Barry White song at all. Everyone says slightly sick sounding voice. Maybe I'm just sick. Maybe I've got the
Keep on doing.
Got the crown virus. We'll call it.
Can't get enough of you, baby.
All right,
dude. Well, maybe you've had so much meat and testosterone that you've just like peaked out at testosterone max.
It's a soy deficiency.
This is the new Tristan. Is that he actually has very white voice now?
That's my soy deficiency. We've got a thoughts on predictive programming in film, says Dell. You should check out some of the. Thank you for the super chat, by the way, man. Thanks for everybody for donating via the super chats. Check out some of the streams that Dyer and I. We've done a few movie streams. I don't remember the names of them. We've got what were some of the movies we reviewed? THX 1138. We did.
We did a whole stream on Terry Gilliam movies that was really good. Me and you and Hesher. Shout out to Hesher. We did Spring Breakers and Under the Silver Lake, which was awesome. Did we do any more movies? We did we did Demolition Man and THX. We did dystopian movies. I think that's our movie.
All right, I just unplugged the microphone and plugged it back in. We'll see if that helps. Maybe it will help.
You sound normal.
I sound normal now. Let me just restart audio engine here. Okay, now I probably will sound better now. How's that, everybody? I'm trying to think of that Barry White song, and I'm like, I keep hitting a wall every time. It's like I can hear the first few bass lines, the first few little bass notes. All right, so let's see. Thoughts on predictive programming in films. Definitely check out Jay's channel if you don't already know about Jay's channel. You and I can still talk. I still hear you.
Yeah.
But the audience gets a little buffering. All right, we're back. Toroidal Zeus says one more point. So just because we were talking to Toroidal Zeus, he says, you might want to ask, what is the point of morality and ethics? The answer is, he gives us the answer. Even though there's no objective truth, he has the answer. He says the answer is, it's the software we use to interact with other humans. That's why it comes from others. That's incoherent. That doesn't make sense. The software we use to interact with other humans. That's morality. What do you think about that, Jay?
Well, I mean, it just kind of avoids the question, because the question wasn't where it derives from. I mean, you can say that that's where you think it derives from, but that's not giving an account for it or making it coherent. I mean, so he's basically just saying, restating his position, but we're asking for a justification, an explanation of the position, and the examples that I gave would still hold. So just saying that it's a software that you get from other people is just okay, but how does that answer the question of how do you adjudicate between true and false, right and wrong? Mm-hmm. You just restate your position that we have. Well, it's a social construct. Okay, so how do you explain when certain cultures are degenerate, or when my culture says that I should destroy your culture if it's a social construct? Do you have a problem with that? He'll just have to say, no, that's your position, bro. That's not my position.
That's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah, is it universally the case that it's a software that we get from society? But your position was relativistic and based on a finite number of empirical observations. So how do you get a universal claim from a limited number of empirical observations? You can't.
Yeah, and this is one of the issues, is they're constantly trying to get universals and relying upon universals and making moral claims while saying morality is subjective. If it's subjective, then you'd stop arguing for moral claims. If it's subjective, What's the problem with us believing it's objective, right? If it's subjective, if all truth is subjective, then isn't that truth also subjective?
Exactly. And conversely, they at the same time want it to be objective, right? So if you say all truths are relative, that's a universal truth claim that defeats itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then they just say, oh, it's consensus, it's might makes right. And it becomes circular. Then everything is meaningless. All meaning is just derived from groupthink and whatever the greatest number of people believe, or if just the most powerful person with the most powerful weaponry believes something, that makes it true. And that is absolutely silly. So you guys, sorry, somebody said when you read the super chats, we don't even hear it because it cut out a couple times. Apologies, guys. Del Bridge was asking about predictive programming in films, and I told him check out some of the streams that Jay and I did. We talked about THX 1138. We did Spring Breakers, Beneath the Silver Lake, and we did some other films, the Terry Gilliam films. You can check out those streams that we did on Jay's channel. They're on his channel. Some of them are on my channel too. Those were fun streams. And then Commander of the Groiper, what is it? Commander of the Groiper Revolution? I gotta make sure I get your whole name there because it's long. Commander of the Groiper Reich says, you on Minds or Telegram, friends? I'm not. Jay, you're on Telegram, right?
Yeah, we do have an Orthodox Christian chat on there.
And then the guy who made a donation earlier said he's got his own Telegram as well. So the Orthodox community is growing on Telegram, he says. So you can check that one out as well, man. We've got Zolo Mexicano says, I am the coconut. We're Christ cucks, but my Aztec ancestors weren't savages. If society dictates morals, then Christian society is correct. There you go. I'll read that without an accent. So if society dictates morals, then Christian society is correct.
Yeah, that's what we were saying earlier, exactly.
Yeah. So if it's might makes right, then what's wrong with what's now? I guess if it is might makes right then and you don't like it, then I guess in that materialistic kind of pagan worldview, then I guess the constant revolution would be necessary, right? And you would just see that, which is, you know, I guess you want to create a world where there's constant revolution and embrace that, and you think that that's something good. I would say that that's kind of... it's not where we want to go towards. All those
positions, pantheism, paganism, they all, for the most part, you might have some exceptions with like Valhalla or...
Freaking annoying. All right, we're back. So, Jay, do you want to repeat that last point? Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so I was just saying that... most of the time, the pagan systems are the people are really just LARPing, and it's a situation where at root it's just atheistic. And it's like if you go listen to the debate I did with Bog Lord Dave, that becomes evident that he's just like, well, look, it doesn't really matter whether these myths are true or not. These pagan stories, it's basically just me coming up with a program for me and my people. Well, that's just arbitrary and subjective again.
Well said. Well said. We got some more. You guys are keeping up with the super chats. We really appreciate that. You guys are definitely directing the conversation with these super chats now. So let's see. Is morality... All right. Thomas says, is morality argument for God valid? If you could clarify that question. Thanks for the $1.99. If you want to clarify that question, I don't really know what you're getting at. Jay, do you know what he's getting at with that?
You skipped for a minute, and it cut out for a brief second. I missed that. Man. What was it?
So freaking annoying. Okay, it says, is morality argument for God valid? That's the question.
Is morality argument?
Is the moral argument for God valid, I guess is what he's asking?
I mean, it depends on how the argument is framed. I mean, you could have an invalid, you could have a moral argument that's invalid. Like if you said something like, look, we all believe innately that there's some notion of right and wrong, so there has to be some kind of generic God out there. That's an invalid argument. I would not agree with that. But if you took a moral argument and made it in a form of a transcendental argument, it could be valid, yes.
All right. Good one. All right, so location 515. I think we're still live now. Guys, I'm sorry for the shoddy internet. I'm hoping this gets resolved really soon. I've got some cool debates coming up with some vegans, some vegan activists that want to come on and talk about their activism and debate stuff. So I'm looking forward to that, but I need to get the internet sorted out first. Apologies, guys. Thank you, Jay, for the patience with this, and thank you, audience, for the patience and for the donations. These donations will go towards fixing my internet and trying to get this stuff working correctly. Can you touch on relationship between Jews and Christians and how to see Jews religiously in relating to the world? So the Orthodox position on Judaism, on the Jews. Jay, you got an opinion on that one? You got a...
Yeah, I would say that we would see Judaism as obviously departing from Orthodox Christianity early on in the book of Acts. So if you read the book of Acts, you'll see why the two positions go in different directions. Obviously, it centers on the person of who Christ is, whether he's the Messiah or not. But I believe if you read Romans 9, 10, and 11, especially chapter 11, Paul foresees eventually a future conversion of the Jews in mass. We don't know when that'll be. We pray for that, obviously, but I do believe that that's true. And so in that and most of the church fathers, by the way, do also affirm the future conversion of the Jews. So we don't say that there is no future place for Jews, in my understanding. And I could give you many of the church. Origen teaches that. St. Cyril of Alexandria teaches that. St. Athanasius teaches that. Many church fathers say that there will be a future conversion of the Jews.
And everybody, right? I mean, all the nations are eventually, right? I mean,
we don't exactly know this will happen, and then this will happen, and then this will happen. I mean, we have a lot of sort of speculations, but most of the fathers say that as that time gets nearer, it will be clearer to the church and to the saints exactly what's going on. But so we don't say that Judaism is like, it's a separate path to God, like some kind of Freemason doctrine of all religions leading to God or something like that.
Yeah, or like a lot of Protestants, or a lot of Protestants are obsessed
we don't obsess over Palestine and this kind of stuff. We simply pray for the conversion, not just of all people, obviously, but also for the conversion of the Jews. And Paul says in Romans 11 that when that happens, and some of the fathers think that Romans 11 means that when that conversion does happen, he says it will be like life from the dead, because he says they will be grafted into the vine that's more naturally their own vine. I mean, we are Gentiles grafted into their vine, and Paul says that there will eventually be a point in which they will be grafted more naturally into their vine. And it almost sounds like, this is my personal speculation, I'm not saying this is necessarily true, my personal speculation on this point is that he almost sounds like there will be an apostasy of the majority Gentile church. So the majority Gentile church will apostatize, and that will lead to a conversion of the Jews grafted into the vine. That's just my personal speculation, though.
Yeah. All right. We got. I like this one. $2 from Cholo Mexicano says, revolutions are just people going in circles. Haha, exactly. Revolution, revolving over and over again.
Yes.
What gets done? Nothing. It's just bloody messes, and everybody trying to climb to the top of the big pile of filth at the end of the revolution. And I think that's what materialism gives you. That's what might makes right gives you. Everybody trying to be the might that makes the right. And I know we've got some people in the chat here that are really upset with what we've said about this, but I do think that's where these pagans.
What are they upset about?
Just the pagans. My ancestors. You hurt my ancestors.
I would say go listen to the debate I did with Bog Lord Dave, because I think he exemplifies their position. He's a well-spoken guy. I mean, obviously I disagree with him, but he isn't terrible at rhetoric. I mean, he makes their point and their argument. So. Maybe they dislike Bog Lord Dave. I don't know, but and then, I mean, the root of this response is that how does paganism avoid relativism? I mean, 99% of the time it doesn't avoid relativism. Most of the time they'll just go, yeah, so what? It is. And then if that's the case, then we're back at relativism, and it's very easy to refute relativism because it's self-refuting.
All right. Man, you guys, thank you so much for the super chats, guys. They just keep coming. We're not even able to get back on task with the vegan refutations, but let's, I'll take it. I'll take it, man. It's been a while since I've been live, and I appreciate the super chats. Location 515 says, wait, here we go. Let's see. We got Canal Espanol says, is there much of a connection between Freemasonry and Judaism? Freemasonry and Judaism. Well, I mean, when you look at the history of Freemasonry, it is... I don't think that the history of Freemasonry shows that it's like an exclusively Jewish organization. I think I've heard the argument made that Freemasonry is Judaism for Gentiles, and there are quotes from people claiming this, but Freemasonry is not inherently a Judaic, a Jewish thing, in my opinion. In fact, Freemasonry.
If you read Albert Pike, Albert Pike basically conceives of it as a syncretistic system where you're trying to find general principles in all the religions and trying to basically create a society, an organization that is the true religion of all the religions.
Yeah.
So there are elements of Solomonic temple philosophy. There's elements of Kabbalism. There's elements of Zoroastrianism, elements of Christianity, elements of Neoplatonism, Pythagoreanism. It's an attempt to create a synthesized, generic, quote unquote, religion of all the religions. So it's the forerunner to the New Age. And so in some senses, I would say if you meant like mystical Judaism, there's a lot of similarities with medieval Kabbalism.
Yeah.
And Freemasonry, but it's not exclusively that. No.
And if you read like Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, that's what this whole book is about. You know, he's got all sorts of pictures.
He goes back to the ancient religions and tries to blend them all together.
And he claims that the Freemasonry is the extension of all the mystery schools, and that they hold the keys to all these mystery schools, and that they are the true heirs to the secret teachings of all ages, including the secret mystical Kabbalah, which comes out of Judaism, but not exclusively
so
that.
People in the chat are fussing about this. I know I've read Albert Pike, I've read all these people, and I know I've read Kabbalists, so I know but Kabbalism is in many senses itself just Neoplatonism.
Albert Pike does not say Freemasonry is Jewish and based on Kabbalah. You can go read Morals and Dogma. I read the whole Morals and Dogma in 2008. He doesn't say that, but he actually does draw from Kabbalah. That's part of what he draws from. He doesn't say it's Jewish, so you can actually go read it.
Kabbalism itself, as a bunch of different systems, is very similar to Gnosticism and Neoplatonism. It's obviously borrowing from those systems.
So we got a Freemason in the chat who's offended too. Says Freemasonry doesn't come from Egypt. LOL. Don't get your history from effing Manly Hall.
Nobody said it came from Egypt.
Manly P. Hall never said that. I never said that. Maybe someone in the chat did. But Manly P. Hall says that.
Manly P. Hall is a con man who spends like 20 lectures telling you about astrology, and then the end of that whole lecture series is, by the way, you need to accept the United Nations and have a world government. So it's just a bunch of con men.
And he talks in this weird, nasally 1920s soy man voice, Manly P. Hall.
So nobody.
And by the way,
and I'm not saying Manly P. Hall. I'm not saying Manly P. Hall runs Freemasonry. I'm just giving one example of a prominent Freemason who you can all read.
You can't talk about this stuff without everybody taking your quotes out of context and trying to, like, you make one statement, it's like, you just,
You freaking, you dorks who are all triggered, you're just as big of dorks as Manly P. Hall and freaking Albert Pike. You're just as lame as them. And your interpretation of Freemasonry isn't even the true Freemasonry, right? Everyone, all these Freemasons, they all say, well, that's not the real Freemasonry. That's not the. Yeah, you all think you have the keys. You all have the secrets. We get it. All right, we'll move on.
By the way, the Jacobson text, I've got it here somewhere in my book, so I can pull it out here in a minute. But she talks about it as a political tool of the British Empire for centuries. That's another important element that you can't forget in Freemasonry, is that it's a centuries-long tool of the British Empire.
All right. Location 515. Look, appreciate all the super chats, man. Thank you so much. But we're here trying to talk about veganism. We're debunking the common arguments in veganism, and we're bringing this chat in a little bit of a different direction. But thank you for the super chat. You got one more. He says, some people say a lot of the revolutionary issues, Jews are at fault. Opinion. I'd say there's you can study history and you can look deeper into this yourself. And yeah, I think I don't really have an opinion on this. I don't think that the Jews are at fault for every single revolutionary movement in the world. There are definitely historical threads of certain groups of, the Jacobins, and you look at the French Revolution, there are certain threads of certain groups of people being involved in a lot of these revolutions, but that doesn't mean that every problem in the world comes from them. I think that's a fallacy that a lot of people make, and I don't know. Jay, what do you think about that? I know that's going to be...
I would blame the Vatican over Judaism, because the Vatican had an extreme amount of power in the West at the time of the Renaissance. And while you can find different strands of mystical influence in the time of the Renaissance, it wasn't the Jews who got usury allowed in the West as a whole. It was the papacy. It was the papacy who promoted the Renaissance Hermetic doctrines. Now you could say, well, but there were Jews that believed these things. Yeah, but they didn't have power. The papacy had power. So if you want to lay blame you can blame the papacy, because the papacy was the most powerful institution in the West for centuries. And it promoted all these things that all these trads and all these pagans are mad about.
I think it's just it's funny. There's a lot of people who seem to want to latch on to the idea that
Again, so here, this is making me mad. All right, so go read Occult Renaissance Church of Rome. That's documented very easily in a historical historian book, Occult Renaissance Church of Rome, 800-page book that documents the papacy being the source of usury in the West.
Yeah. So, all right. And when you say, is it Judaism that's behind these things? What you're looking at, I mean, all right, so to say that it's Judaism behind that, like there's some monolithic Judaic conspiracy and that all the Jews are in on this, is absolutely ridiculous. Although, of course, there are Protestants involved in certain revolutionary movements. There are Protestants involved in the bringing about of the Federal Reserve Bank. There are also Jewish banking families involved. Not all international banking is run exclusively by Jews. Of course, there are aspects. So I think the nuance gets lost in historical narratives, especially on the internet when everybody's looking for sound bites and clickbait titles.
So the pagan thing, what they want to do is they want to find blame in genetics, because they worship and they're obsessed with genetics. So they want to lay the blame on other genetic foils to their superior genetics. And this is just stupid manipulation. They're actually being manipulated because pagan movements themselves are all run and controlled by a bunch of fads and retards.
Yeah, well, I guess the Rockefeller family being very powerful in the U.S. This is, I mean, there are a lot of these Protestant families who are very powerful there, and they want to blame everything on the Jews, the blood libel type thing. But I think if you study history, you realize things are a lot more nuanced. So, anyways, this is not what this chat was meant to be about. But thanks, guys, for the super chats. Appreciate that. If you got super chats that are related to the topic at hand, we'd appreciate that. All right, so it was like an hour on a complete tangent.
You got all the pagans in your chat.
It's exactly, dude. It's like as soon as you start talking about paganism, then they got to bring up Majus.
But we were here to talk about vegan arguments, so
I know, man. I know. Well, we're talking about veganism. We're debunking a lot of the common arguments for veganism and the theological stuff, and then the pagans showed up. So we'll just ignore that aspect now, and we'll move on. So, I know you got some notes there on some of these other common arguments that the vegans make, Jay. If you want to, if you've got one that you think is important that you want to hit on.
Well, we hit on rights, we hit on social constructs, we hit on the appeal to nature, we hit on we didn't hit on burden of proof. Let's see, what's another common one? Another common fallacy you'll see is the one where we did appeal to emotion, where people will say, are you familiar with No True Scotsman? This one comes up too. This is a great one because basically it's the idea of purity. Like no true scientist would ever believe in creation, right? So it's not an actual argument. It's just this appeal to ambiguous purity, or that we all have a common idea of what a scientist really believes. We all know scientists believe in facts and not creation, right? But that's not an actual argument, right? And you'll see the same type of thing, like, well, any honorable, sensible, dignified human being would not eat another sentient being, right? You'll see this that's the No True Scotsman fallacy, that as if there's some common notion of what it is to be a human being, and that it's somehow wrapped up in the dignity of a human being not to eat an animal.
What about a dog? Like, I mean, a dog is a sentient being, and my dog will have so much fun slowly killing a chicken. Will quite enjoy that.
Yeah. Well, no true dog would eat another.
Okay, yeah. Well, real dogs are vegan, right? You got to make your real dogs go vegan.
There you go. A real human being would never eat. That's an easier way to say it. That's a version of No True Scotsman fallacy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another one we could point out is another one of the most obvious ones is the ad hominem, right? I mean, you hear this all the time, but we can't pass this up because it is a fallacy, even though it's the most common one and people just sort of hand wave it now because you're so used to ad hominems. But if somebody were to say, Tristan, we know veganism is true because you're a jerk.
Yeah. Yeah. Bald man bad for sure.
Bald man bad is a basic ad hominem, right?
Yeah.
What's another? Bandwagon. This is a common one where you have everybody like, look, most people now are learning about veganism. Most people are coming on board with
the world. It's 2020. We're cutting off kids' pee-pees, and veganism is the future, man. The world is going vegan, and there's nothing you can do to stop it, you bigot.
That is the bandwagon fallacy. Great. Yeah. You hear this slogan all the time, right?
Mm-hmm. It's 2020. Come on. It's 2020. That's the new SJW fallacy. It's 2020 fallacy. No matter what they want to argue for, it's 2020. I must be right. Get with the times, bigot.
Let's see what else. I had another one on this list here that comes up often.
Hey, we've had a good 20 minutes with no interruptions now. I mean, interruptions as far as the internet goes. We're good on that. We still got a few pagans.
This one could be mentioned as well. It may not come up a lot, but it could come up. And a lot of people forget this fallacy, and it's called the fallacy, which is the notion that if something is argued badly, then the converse is true, which is not correct. So in other words, let's say you had a guy who was a proponent of carnivore and he made a bad argument. Like he said, we all should eat meat because
we evolved to eat meat, bro. Obviously evolution doesn't make mistakes, dude.
Right. That's a bad argument. And so a vegan hearing that argument could say, booyah, I just proved veganism, because that's a bad argument.
Yeah.
That actually doesn't prove veganism, right? So because a counter position is argued badly, aka the fallacy doesn't prove your position necessarily.
We see that a lot.
There could be some cases where that does happen. For example, at a paradigm level, if it was to the exclusion of all other possible positions. But this is not an argument about paradigms when we talk about a bad argument at the normative level.
Well, what these vegans will do a lot too is during debates, you'll say something like, I mean, these vegans, they can get really obnoxious during debates, right? And if you say something, if you make an argument, and then in your argument, at the end of your argument, you say, and you're an idiot. But that's not your argument that they're an idiot. They'll try to say that's an ad hominem. No, that's not an ad hominem. I'm just saying that you're an idiot. My argument isn't that you're an idiot. My argument is that veganism is morally ridiculous, and that you as a moral subjectivist have no right to tell anybody what they should believe, do, or say morally, and you're an idiot. My argument...
Any of the studies that are funded by or supported by vegans. They won't look at any of the counter evidence, confirmation bias. And so, look, I've got 17 studies from Kellogg Corporation and the Seventh-day Adventist Church that proves veganism is the healthiest lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because they'll reference the Seventh-day Adventist studies constantly. They'll constantly reference Seventh-day Adventist ideology and studies. But then they'll say, anytime you bring up a study that will prove the opposite of what they have to say, that's funded by the meat industry. That's funded by somebody who once did a study that was funded by the egg industry, and therefore it's absolutely useless. All right, so it's they're a little bit arbitrary with that as well.
Yeah, another one is, and then simultaneously they'll do that, and then they'll use the genetic fallacy with you, and they'll say, Tristan, I just gave you 17 studies from Seventh-day Adventists and Kellogg and all this stuff, and then when you cite a study from, say, a doctor who's a carnivore, they'll say, that's a biased study, bro. You can't be citing those carnivore guys, or somebody who's a keto guy. You can't do that. That's a genetic fallacy, first of all, right? Because on the one hand, we're not saying that because they cited a study that is only from Kellogg that they're bad. It's that they're picking and choosing only those, right? And so if you were to counter with them, they'll have, it's okay for me, but not for thee, right? Like you can't cite a guy who's a carnivore. They'll call you out for bias, and they'll say, oh, that's a genetic fallacy because you're, or no, we should call them out for genetic fallacy. Say, look, the source is irrelevant, but if you only have that source and you won't look at any opposing argumentation, it's useless. But most of the time when I hear these arguments, because the people in this realm worship science and scientism, they're just throwing studies back and forth. Like
it's so pointless. It's so obnoxious. And what happens?
Loves to do this. He's like, I have a study. I have this study. And this study. This study.
He doesn't even know how to read these or interpret them at all. And then what happens is it turns into just a big circle jerk of, oh, my studies are better than yours, and they're both trying to say, oh, your studies are invalid. And both sides can be very arbitrary in this. Like a lot of the people from the carnivore or keto or just non-vegan side will come with their studies, and they'll say, They'll say, look, here's this epidemiological study that shows that blank, blank, and blank. When 10 minutes before, they dismissed their vegan opponent's study by saying that's epidemiology. Epidemiology is really poor science and is very, very difficult.
Yeah, similar to that, false cause, like they'll also correlation, causation. Like, we're not sure exactly in a lot of these cases what the real cause of, say, an illness might be. For example, you've been eating meat for all your life and that's why you developed all these illnesses. Well, that could be from eating low quality processed so-called meat.
Yeah.
Right. So we can't just assume that there's a simple one-to-one.
How about like pesticide exposure environmentally, right? I mean, we know that autism rates increase dramatically around fields that are heavily sprayed with pesticides. We've got all this other stuff environmentally that affects us, including electromagnetic radiation, non-native EMF. We've got all these things that do affect us, and to blame all your health issues on one thing always, I mean, it's kind of nonsensical, and both sides can be very, very guilty of the same thing. This is why ultimately I think if you're going to refute veganism, arguing over the science of the health of veganism versus non-veganism is a dead end, pointless argument, and it really doesn't end up fruitful for either side. It just ends up both sides saying your study's bad, my study's good, and walking off both thinking that the other, I BTFO'd you, I really I destroyed you and you're stupid. Both sides end up thinking that. So I don't know. As far as like the argumentation for or against veganism, I definitely prefer to go at it from the moral standpoint and use their own moral assumptions, their own assumptions about morality, and use their own arguments against them. So that they make the claim, the speciesism argument that they make very often. They'll talk about speciesism. They'll say, well, speciesism is arbitrarily treating one species different, right, and giving moral, making it to where we can kill animals, and whereas we know that it's wrong to kill humans, therefore we shouldn't kill animals. You can turn that around on them and say, okay, well, why is it okay for animals to eat other animals, but it's not okay for us? Are we going to go and prosecute the lion for murder? Are we going to go prosecute mosquitoes for murder, for eating our animal blood? Are they morally wrong for doing this? Right? So they're going to be they're going to be using these naturalistic fallacies, and you can really easily make them expose the arbitrary nature of their arguments and their bias against humans, right? Because they are speciesist against human beings. They want to make the claim that human beings are somehow different from animals and we have moral agency when they just claimed that we're all the same. So right there, they're refuting themselves, and they're showing that they don't even believe the basic presuppositions that they're claiming they believe and that they're using to make their argument. I find that more fruitful for them because they see how arbitrary they're being, and they'll usually just end up going in a loop after that. But eventually maybe they'll think back on it and think, okay, well, maybe something is a little bit amiss in my worldview, and hopefully then question the deeper assumptions later on. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just walk away thinking they won, and appealing to emotion, like we talked about earlier. The appeals to emotion are really common, but some of them do end up eventually. Most of them do end up. They all end up leaving veganism anyways. Remember, 85%, I think it was 84% of vegetarians and vegans within, I think it was 3 to 5 years, leave their the religion, right? They leave veganism, vegetarianism. 84% of people. So the recidivism rate, going back to so-called carnism, is very, very high. And there are a lot of reasons for that. First of all, it's nutrient deficient. Nobody can go long-term on these nutrient deficient diets. And second of all, they eventually end up realizing how stupid it is. And they're sick of being the most obnoxious person at the dinner table when they have to go visit their inhumane families and sit at the dinner table while they're eating meat. They get sick of it. And they want meat. They crave it. It's obvious.
And as they will often point out, you're right to not get into the health debate side of it, because they will often tell you that veganism is not a position related to health. It's an ethical position.
Exactly.
You're not supposed to take this because it's healthier to you. That's selfish of you, dude.
Yeah. It's not. Veganism is not a diet. Veganism is the exclusion of the exclusion of animal foods and the reduction. Let's look up the definition of veganism again, because this is actually hilarious. If we go to definition, according to the Vegan Society, the definition of veganism is. It seems like the chat has chilled out now. The pagans are not so pissed anymore. They've They've settled down there. All right, so the Vegan Society, let's find this. Definition of veganism. A way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose. All of this is completely subjective. Possible. Completely subjective. What do you mean, what, as much as possible? Who determines what's possible, right? Do you mean physically possible? What about emotionally possible? What if I'm not emotionally able to not be vegan? What if I can't emotionally give up my connection to me? What if it's not practicable for me to give up animal foods because I feel like shit and wither away and feel like crap, right? What if my health is crashing? Does that make it impracticable? So this is very subjective. And then also exploitation. Who determines what is exploitation? Right? How do you know what is exploitation? How do you know what cruelty? What is cruel? What is cruelty? Right? So what is practicable? What is possible? What is exploitation? What is cruelty? So it's very, very crappy legalese here. I mean, imagine if this was a law. Imagine if this was like an international law. Like, we are declaring this a hard law. Veganism is a way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of, cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose. Man, the lawyers would have a have a really fun time with that one, because it's completely open to interpretation and is very, very loose, slippery legalese. So, I mean, even the very definition of veganism is something that I think is very important to bring up. How do you know what's practicable? What is practicable? Not practical, practicable. What does that even mean?
It sounds a little more fancy than practical.
Right, practicable. You add another syllable, so you sound smart.
Why you guys gotta use all these college words? You guys using all these college words.
There's another one. You'll see the false either or that comes up a lot. You'll see that like either you have to admit, this is part of Ask Yourselves dilemma that he tries to posit with you with the trait, is that either you're going to eat humans or you are a vegan. So on a simpler level, that's the false either or fallacy.
Yeah. 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 Well, so maybe we talk a little bit about name the trait, because that's some of these vegans, they think that that's their God, right? That's their second coming of Peter Singer and his heavy petting zoo is is name the trait. So name the trait argument is name the trait that makes. Let's find the exact word.
What does a human possess different from an animal that makes it okay for you to eat an animal? Excuse me. What's the trait that an animal possesses that a human lacks that makes it okay to eat animals but not humans? Yeah. So when we start appealing to the fact that we are made in God's image and we have the faculty of reason and this kind of stuff, and animals are not, then he'll try to appeal to, you can't go there because that's meta. And that's meta, and we don't go into the meta. Meta has nothing to do with anything. Yeah, it does. That's why we don't grant to you at this point.
So when they say name the trait that makes humans different from animals, where it makes it okay to eat animals but not okay to eat humans, right, all you have to say is human beings are made in the image and likeness of God. Right?
And so then they'll say, "Whoa, you can't go there. That's not proven." Yeah, but we're arguing worldviews. That's what that guy doesn't understand, is that he's operating on a classical foundationalist assumption of how words and language and truth operates. And once you try to point out that that's been refuted, and that Quine refutes that even up to today, so from David Hume all the way up to Quine, nobody has solved these dilemmas. And you'll notice, you see there the Ask Yourself stuff coming up, because he's actually promoting this at the behest of whoever his logic professor is. He doesn't actually know what he's talking about, but he's got a handler who sort of promotes his stuff.
Does he have a logic professor? Is he actually a student? I didn't know that. I thought he was just.
So he claims.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. Well, he does. I don't know. He does seem to have a lot of time, like most students. Maybe he seems like one of those perpetual students whose parents pay for him to go to school from the age of 18 to 45. And yeah. That's cool.
So that's why he won't allow the conversation to deal with anything meta-ethical or metaphysical, because he wants you to assume classical foundationalism and to start the argument given all of his premises.
He wants you to assume naturalism. He wants you to assume materialism, which is complete nonsense. Why should we assume naturalism and materialism?
And basic empiricism too.
So yeah, we got
grant me all my assumptions, and I will lead you to my conclusion. Basically, is what he said.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. What are some other common vegan arguments? Because I mean, that one falls apart really quickly, and that's the one that they think is like the pinnacle, right?
You tell me one that you've heard a lot, and we'll see if we can find a foul. Like, what's one of the more common ones that they will say? Tristan, blah blah blah.
Let's pull up some vegan debates. How about that? We got some vegan debates here. We can check out some of these vegan jellicles. Let's see. I've got one. Is it this one? No. This one. So this guy's in the, I put him, he's got the best shirt that I've ever seen on a vegan. Sorry, I need to get an ad blocker on this machine. 3, 2, 1. All right. He's got the soy boy shirt. Oh, you guys can't see it yet. Excuse me.
Can I run to the restroom real quick while you play that clip?
Yeah, take a break, run to the bathroom. I'll play the clip. Let's see. There we go. Jay's got to go fix his makeup, guys. We got a quick break here. Let's see. All right, let me come back to the super chats. We got Eric Partello sending $2. Says, keep up the good fight, guys. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Just a little announcement. We do have a members section of our website. If you guys want to see exclusive content, we got a lot of exclusive content there on the site. I've had some fun debates with vegans on Instagram. And when there's a good Instagram live, what we do is we archive it and we save it for the members. We got a private members forum where we do monthly coaching calls. And if you go to primaledgehealth.com/members or primaledgehealth.com/membership. Let me look. Let me make sure. Let me figure out what the URL is. Sorry, guys. I always forget to talk about some of these things. So primaledgehealth.com/membership. There's the first link in the description down below. You guys can become members. We do monthly coaching calls on there. Community of like-minded people. It's not like a troll community where we support each other and where you can learn from each other. And you do get discounts on our products from our website as well. We've got a lot of new articles on the website. We've got a free guide to how to include more organs in the diet, how to eat more organ meats, Jessica's awesome secrets to making nutrient-dense animal foods and organ meats. And then, of course, if you do want to support us, you can support via PayPal. That is always helpful. The demonetization, the being hidden in the algorithm is always affecting us. Our channel is actually, the growth of this channel was, we were getting 3,000 new subscribers every month, consistently, right? 3,000 new subscribers every single month. Now we get like 200 new subscribers a month, right? They've effectively cut off the growth of this channel, even though we get more views on a lot of these videos than we ever have. So please support us if you feel so inclined. Become a member. Check out the membership section. Also, you can check out the Carnivore Cookbook. 0 carb recipes for people who really love animals. This is available at primaledgehealth.com. Show you how to make the most nutrient-dense, whole, unrefined foods, the only foods that the body requires, which are animal foods. The only foods that you can live off of exclusively are animal foods. You can't live exclusively off of plant foods. You will wither away if you do not supplement heavily. And even with heavy supplementation, you risk heavy degeneration. So check out the Carnivore Cookbook, Jessica's book, 0 carb recipes for people who really love animals. And become a member of the website for exclusive content. We've got some exclusive interviews there. We've got some really good Instagrams. I do some Instagram lives every once in a while that are pretty fire. We save those, and we save those debates, and we put them up there for the members of the website. Jay's taking a break right now. Then we're going to watch some vegan videos in the next segment. How long have you been streaming? Oh, there you go. Cool. Sorry. There we go. Multi-guest 3. All right. Here we go. So we've got this young gentleman. He's the uber vegan here. I'm gonna have to change the audio settings. The vegan uber mensch on screen here.
The over vegetable.
The Uber veg, the Uber soy. So vegan Ubermensch Humane Hancock is here. Humane Hancock. I mean, this is a real person. This is not satire. That's his real face. That's not a cartoon of the new male, right? Like, he starts the video off in full soy face.
He's a sadder version of the Wojak. You know, the Wojak that's like...
All right, so I'm gonna have to change. I'm gonna change the source. Jay, you're not gonna hear me talking, but you'll hear this video, and I will stop whenever you want to stop. The audience will be able to hear you, the video, and me, but because of my my tech skills, this is how I gotta do it.
That's fine.
I am at the London School of Economics and Political Science, where the student union have voted to place a ban on the sale of beef on campus. I'm here to see what the students think, and if they would support a ban on the sale of the flesh of tortured cows. Let's see what they have to say.
Okay, I'm Mark Huffman. I'm the Dean of the General Course in Global Mobility and teach in the International Relations Department. And I've been at the LSE for a very, very long time.
Okay, we don't need to get specific.
We'll leave it at that, yeah.
So are you aware of the potential ban on the sale of beef on campus?
Yes, yep, yep.
And do you have an opinion on whether you would support the ban or whether you'd be against it?
I think it's important that there's a choice for people on the campus to have non-beef based foods, plant-based foods, that kind of stuff. In terms of the ban itself, I'm not sure. I'm convinced that's probably a useful way to go. I can see the merits of it. I don't eat a lot of meat myself, so it wouldn't bother me particularly. But I think moving to sustained sources of beef, and where the beef comes from, that would be an important part of a campaign. An outright ban, not sure about.
So the potential ban on the sale of beef on the campus. Like, what's your opinion on that?
He wanted the longest dong-style microphone that he could buy.
Quite problematic. I think just the fact that the consumption of beef overall will be labeled as environmentally unfriendly, I think is an issue. I think it's not beef as like a whole, but it depends where you buy it. I mean, if you're getting it from America, if you're getting it from South America, I mean, the chemicals involved in that process is very different if you, say, for example, get Scotch beef. And also with Scotch beef, the meat being produced there, not much else can grow and not much else can be produced in that land. Whereas, in contrast, in like South America and stuff, if they're like taking down rainforests and such, then it's an issue. But I think what I'm trying to say is it's more down to people having a greater appreciation of what they're eating and where it's coming from.
Okay.
Feel like that's the decision we're making.
I rarely go in the supermarket to buy foods.
Or whenever we're buying the animal product. And that's arbitrary discrimination.
No, I think there's probably a difference between that.
What is the difference?
All right, here we go. I'm going to rewind this to the beginning of this argument. He cuts it up in a weird way.
Do you think that the act of buying the animal products then is kind of contradicting your own morals?
Possibly. It's, again, something...
You know what? You know what? I will say this. I will give vegans credit for this one thing, which they don't intentionally try to do. But the way that they have framed this debate, when they go to name the trait and all this stuff, this does force people to recognize that the debate is not just about this or that fact, but it's actually our entire worldview.
It's metaphysical, exactly. It comes down to the worldview, and it does force it. So that's why that's the only place where I like to engage with the debate, right? Like, I don't like to engage in the stupid back and forth, the study.
Well, that's why they don't want to engage us on that debate too, because they know that we can beat them there. Because what they want to do is trick a bunch of normies who have the same naturalistic presuppositions that they have, and point out to them how, on the naturalistic assumptions, then yes, you could lead a person to veganism.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's funny. They don't want to engage us on that argument, but for some reason, on every single platform, I've had to ban Isaac because he just obsessively comments trying to get me to debate him. I'm not sure what his...
Ask Yourself?
Ask Yourself wants to... Yeah, he wants like he's got this narcissistic wound that occurred. And look, Isaac, those narcissistic wounds, they heal with time, right? You got to build up your narcissistic powers by bullying some more normies. and then maybe you can jump back on with the debate with somebody who will actually challenge you and challenge your metaphysical presuppositions, because I know you don't want to do that. And but it's funny, I don't
scenario that he has to keep qualifying, where it's like, okay, imagine that there is a zombie virus that's let loose and it only affects half of the population, and we know for certain that there's absolutely no way to solve this zombie virus, and grant me this and grant me this and grant me this and grant me this and grant me this. And then in that case, would you say that it's wrong to eat animals?
Yeah. No, it all relies on hypotheticals. Let's give me a fake hypothetical situation, and in this fake hypothetical situation,
there is a computer on another planet, and this computer was not made by any god. Does that computer run?
This is the monkey in the cantaloupe fallacy. Yeah, sorry. I know this cut out for a second there, guys, but I think we're back now. I think we're good now. So yeah, no, they absolutely do, and they do a good job at making people realize that this is not a physical argument. This is an argument on something so simple as like health, and this goes down to the deep metaphysical presuppositions of your worldview. But of course, the vegans will not allow you to make them question that. If you make them question that, they start to self-destruct, because they are the most normie of the normies. Right? They've just figured out one way to bypass a lot of people's rational mind and to put them in kind of a schizophrenic state almost, right, with these questions. So yeah, let's hear what if he ever goes somewhere with this argument, because I think he says it's a university professor fails to justify animal abuse, but the way he edits this, he intentionally, what this guy does, he goes out and he tries to get the stupidest people to give him stupid answers and make the vegan look smarter than the idiot retards that he talks to. So it's kind of a dishonest approach to it. Let's see. I have to change the audio settings for you so that you can hear the cable output. There we go.
Products then is kind of contradicting your own morals. Pleasure.
Of why we eat.
But I suppose we have to look at why we're doing it, and if we have a good enough reason, perhaps it can be justified. Do you think we have a good enough reason?
In terms of why we eat meat?
Yeah.
Why we eat animals?
Mm.
In terms of food sourcing, probably arguments that no. In terms of that there are better, more healthy, sustainable ways of putting food on your plate. In terms.
Okay, I'm gonna stop that right there, because this is where the average normie who just spends his days watching TV and listening to the rhetoric on the television, they can't refute this because they buy into all this bullshit that they hear, right? How many times has it been repeated to most of us that animal foods are bad, animal foods are destroying the planet, animal foods are making the climate change, the gods are mad, the gods are angry, the climate's changing. Oh shoot, I don't hear you. Hold on. Are you muted?
So people's choice.
Jay, can you check if you're muted on your... I don't hear you. I hear... Shoot. All right, my speaker's working. I think you're muted on your end, Jay. You hear me though, right? Uh-oh. Jay, can you hear me? You can't hear me. Now you can hear me.
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, we're good. All right, sorry guys. I missed what you were saying, and I think the audience wasn't able to hear it as well. What was that, Jay? You didn't hear what I said.
I haven't heard anything for about a minute.
All right, so, but you heard the argument that he made, right? It's unsustainable to eat meat.
I did heard that part, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So basically, I'm just saying most normies are so programmed by the cultural zeitgeist. They believe that the hashtag climate crisis is coming to kill them. The climate is changing because people won't eat the kibble. The climate is changing because animals exist and cows are farting and they're making the climate change. And this is absolutely untrue. And this is complete social engineering, right? They're going after your most crucial and important food source. They're telling us that our source of life, our source of food, not our source of life, but our source of food and sustenance here, the only way that we can feed our families off of our own land is with animal foods, right? And they're telling us that's unsustainable, that's bad. Most normies aren't going to push back on this, especially at a place like Oxford, where the social engineering is so thick because that's where it's spreading out of, right? Oxford University, Harvard University, Yale. These are some of the intellectual strongholds of the Anglo-American establishment. And this is where a lot of the social engineering begins and starts and then spreads out through television, through media, and through all these mouthpieces and useful idiots like Herbie Hancock here, or Humane Hancock here. And Freudian slip, Herbie Hancock. Every time I hear Herbie Hancock, I think of that line in Tommy Boy when so the guy has no refutation for this, but anybody who's watching this channel would be able to refute this, right? If you look at the environmental devastation and destruction that's done by soy production, by vegetable agriculture, by the GMO revolution, by the green revolution, where we're destroying our topsoil, we're tilling up that topsoil, spraying all these agrochemicals on it that are wrecking the soil, and of course you have consolidated food supply run by transnational corporations, bankrolled by the international banks. These people aren't going to talk about that or push back on that, but it's very important to show them that they're absolutely wrong, that agriculture and the big ag industry is destroying our soil, and it's for vegetable agriculture. The Beyond Burger and the Impossible Burger, way more destructive than beef, right? Beef can actually regenerate soil. You need animal inputs to grow vegetables unless you're going to be using a bunch of toxic NPK fertilizers, a bunch of toxic pesticides and agrochemicals and machinery. So these people are hypocritical as shit and don't even realize it.
Well, this is the unfortunate effect of choosing to be in normiedom. If you choose to mock people like myself or you and call us conspiracy theorists, and you decide that you want to be in the matrix, then you're going to pay the cost when you reject the truth, right? So you're going to go along with the narrative of climate change and overpopulation and all of this stuff, GMOs that you've been talking about. You're going to default accept the normie lifestyle, the normie diet, the normie worldview. And this is going to be destructive for you because that entire worldview is engineered to make sure that you are alienated, alone, childless, in a coffin apartment, in a smart city. And it's engineered for your destruction. So you're actually buying your own destruction. So it's not actually hurting us who live in the real world. You living out there, actually being sustainable, not being sustainable in this phony corporate sense, but actually being sustainable in Ecuador. So, we've got two different worldviews of this false counter culture that these people are involved in. They think that they're the rebels. It's all a completely corporate created counterculture. And they laugh at people like us who actually live healthy lifestyles, who actually seek spiritual health, seek physical health. And they want to castigate us as, quote, conspiracy theorists. But the reality is that you can't make reality what you want it to be. You either conform to reality or you suffer the consequences.
Yeah. So I've got the sun. I'm gonna have to cover this. I got this skylight up at the top, and it's like burning my head right now. Awesome. So Bald Man Bad's got to put his goofy hat on, guys. I got my farmer hat on today. But absolutely, man. I mean, these people have no idea what's actually destroying their health, and they're blaming it on the animal foods that they barely eat anyways. This guy barely eats meat.
Good point.
And, this guy's got pre-diabetic looking body. I mean, the guy obviously he's unhealthy, right? Pudgy, pale, old professor at this university, and this guy probably wonders why he feels like shit all the time. And he's thinking that meat is a problem, that animal foods are a major problem, when animal foods are, first of all, not inherently unsustainable at all. Second of all, the very economic entities that created this globalist system of food production, the very economic entities that created these massive slaughterhouses, consolidated the meat processing and meat packing industry in the United States on behalf of 4 corporations, right? You got like JBS, Cargill, Tyson Foods, and the other one, I forget its name. It's not Bunge, but the meatpacking industry is completely consolidated. But those same corporate entities are also pushing the plant-based kibble on you, right? Cargill, who owns much of the meat processing industry in the United States, it's responsible for what the vegans call factory farming, which in and of itself, the term factory farming it's kind of a red herring. And factory farming itself is essentially a straw man. These people are getting you to destroy your ability to feed yourself off your own land, getting you to destroy your ability to get nutrient-dense, nourishing animal foods because of the economic system that they set up. So you have the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, which consists of some of the biggest polluters in the world. You've got BP, Shell, you've got Cargill, you've got Monsanto, Bayer Pharmaceutical, Merck, IKEA, Starbucks, Google, all members of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, talking about we're going to be sustainable, we're going to change this, we're going to make everything sustainable, and they are pushing for plant-based diets. They're pushing for banning meat, and they're pushing for a global economic order that will essentially exalt big agriculture, big pharma, and the mass production of these plant-based junk foods in lieu of the healthy foods that you actually need to survive, making you further dependent on pharmaceutical drugs, making you further dependent on a massive supplement industry that is also dependent on massive inputs of slave labor, right? So all these vegans have... All right, I'm back. So anyways, that cobalt that's required for all you vegans to take your vitamin B12 supplements, they're using fermentation to make that, and they have to use raw materials that come from slave labor from children in the Congo. All right, so you are destroying the planet in order to harvest all this cobalt so that you can actually take your vitamin B12 supplements, eat your plant-based kibble that's mass manufactured by the very economic entities who you believe is creating this so-called animal holocaust, and you are actually destroying the ecology, or whatever you want to call it. You're actually destroying the topsoil. You're actually destroying your own gut. You're actually destroying economically the global south and a lot of the poor nations in the third world countries of the world with your choices. But you think it's good, and you're patting yourselves on the back, telling yourselves that you are so enlightened, that you're so much better than everyone. So it's totally backwards. Sorry, how's the connection now? They had to cut out right then. All right. You hear me still, right, Jay? Jay, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, there you go. Now you're unmuted.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Cool. All right, let me switch the audio over here. All right, let's listen to his argument and see where he actually goes with this.
Some taste, that's going to be a different argument.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that the sensory pleasure people get from eating animals, is that a good enough justification for the violence to the animals?
Probably not.
Do you see any ethical issue with the act of killing at all?
No.
So if I was to kill my cameraman, would that be an ethical issue?
I mean, I'm not going to delve into that too much. But it's obvious
in a human
like,
context.
A human, like humans killing humans. Of course, we're told that like this goes against every kind of natural like justice, like and like human nature.
Yeah.
But I do not have an issue with killing an animal. I think you do it efficiently, and like you have to value it. You have to value like.
So now he's going to say, "What if I kill you efficiently and I value you?"
But it's worth it. For the carcass, for the meat, and as long as I respect it, that's okay.
So you wouldn't accept it in a human context?
No.
So my question is, that's good to hear. My question is, what is the difference, I guess the moral difference, between killing the animal and killing the human?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. That's a fucking good question. I mean...
Look, it's tough. Yeah.
It's tough. It's just... like, food chain, I am very willing to see an animal as something I can consume, and it's something that you.
Okay, so again, with that name the trait, right? They always got to do the name the trait argument. And this dude completely fails the name the trait thing. And it works on most normies, right? This name the trait argument, that what's the difference? Why can I kill animals but I can't kill you? These people who believe that we're just beasts, if you believe in this bestial philosophy of Darwinism, of materialism, then you can fall prey to this. Right? So this is why I think it's always important to go down to the paradigm level. You look at the foundations of their worldview, their epistemology, where they're coming from, and you question that. But of course, this guy, he's an Oxford University student, and he doesn't even think to do that. You hear me, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
You getting slayed by vegans online or what? You getting pwned?
No, I'm just telling there's a whole bunch of drama at the same time. I started looking at that when it cut out for like a minute, so I'm sorry. I got distracted.
Did I cut out again?
What the hell? I mean, a minute ago, not right now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So basically, the name the trait shit all over again.
Yeah. I mean, again, you have to accept their starting point. So if you want to accurately critique or respond to a vegan, you're going to have to be willing to call out and not admit their starting points. And most people are not going to do that because most people don't think in a worldview sense. But I think that the content that you put out, the content that I put out, what we try to do is actually train people to be able to recognize these fallacies, these incorrect procedures and reasoning. And if you can't do that, you will get duped by this stuff. Like it's very easy to get duped when you grant people their starting points. That's why transcendental argumentation is so powerful. Presuppositional critiques are so powerful. It's because you don't allow the person to let you be led down their path, right? You're saying, wait a minute, before we go down your road to your desired end, let's talk about why I'm on your road. Let's talk about the meaning of the road that you want to take me down. How do I know that you even have a road that's coherent to go down? Maybe you're leading me off a cliff. Maybe this road ends at a cliff. So you want to not even start down their road, right? So if I'm interviewing if this dude's interviewing me, I wish he would come up to me and ask me questions.
Right.
I guarantee he wouldn't air the clip, but
No, he wouldn't come on. I mean, I would say like Herbie, John Hancock, come on and debate myself, or you could go on and debate Jay. Come on, man, come and talk to me or Jay or both of us. We'd love to actually hash out this conversation with you, because
let's talk about what are ethics.
Yeah,
exactly. Let's do some simple questions. What are ethics?
Yeah, where do ethics come from? How do we know what is morally right or wrong? How do we know what's morally right or wrong? And they're going to come down to appealing to emotion, which they'll tell you can't appeal to emotion. That's a fallacy. If you try to appeal to emotion, because they understand some of the logical fallacies. These people have studied it, but they will make the same mistakes that they claim other people are making. So
they'll do special pleading. This is another one you'll see a lot with these kind of people is that you're held to a standard that they're not, right? Yeah. Like, I don't have to justify my claims. You got to justify your claims.
They'll say, well, why do you think it's okay to promote the unnecessary suffering of animals? And you can say, well, why do you think it's okay to promote the unnecessary suffering of humans on a vegan diet? Right? If I was forced to be on a vegan diet, I would be suffering. That would create suffering for me.
No, mate. I don't have to answer that question. The burden of proof is on you, mate. Yeah. So they'll switch the burden of proof, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, let's watch a couple more minutes of this. And then we can start wrapping up. We could finish this video and then we can wrap it up. We've been going for like 2 hours. You guys got any more super chats? Throw them in there. I want to thank all you guys for the super chats, even though a lot of them were totally off topic. I see the people who are asking the off topic super chat questions, they're gone now. They don't even care about the content of this. Isn't that funny? They just come in and they just go around. They try to bring things in their own little direction. They don't care about the content you're actually trying to make. They want you to talk about what they want to talk about. So it's kind of annoying. But you know what? You guys are welcome if you stay on point. One guy's still here. No, there you go. There we go. Some of them are still here. So some of them do care. And I know that name. I know you've been around for a while. So you're not guilty of that. But there were some people in there. They don't care about this content. They just want to spread their questions about. And that's cool. It's the internet. Do what you got to do. So let's finish this.
Using my judgment, I can kill
If I was to say to you, like, using my judgment, I'm happy to see this cameraman as meat, and I want to eat him, that wouldn't necessarily make it moral, right?
No.
Just I mean, some murderers and rapists, they see themselves as doing something okay, but we'd say there's a victim to your choice. And when it comes to killing an animal, I guess there's a victim to our choice. So the question becomes, how do we justify the act?
Yeah. Yeah.
You said before that if the action is hurting someone else, then it's justified in being banned. Do you think that killing the cow or breeding and using the cow, is that hurting the cow?
Okay, so
hurting, right? Unjustified hurting, what you just pointed out. I mean, there's so many assumptions wrapped up into this that it's wrong to hurt beings, or that beings, in all cases, that we should avoid suffering. I mean, this is arbitrary. Like, on what basis do we know that it's wrong, or that we should avoid suffering? Now, I think that, yes, in a sense, you can say that we should avoid unnecessary suffering. But this argument is being expanded from avoiding unnecessary suffering to, therefore, we should not eat meat. That's where he's trying to take this.
Well, what is necessary? How do we determine what's necessary and what's not? It's not even necessary for me to be alive.
Right. I mean, if it's good for us to eat meat, then that is a necessary suffering that is part of this world.
And also, yeah, absolutely. And a lot of these people, they're going to say, oh, well, I don't adhere to the Christian worldview. I don't believe in a God, right. But I'm more aligned with Buddhism or with even Hinduism. Buddhism says that life is suffering. So life is suffering, yet you want to get rid of all suffering. So I guess you want to get rid of all life, right? And some of them are actually, they actually do. And they will be consistent with that, and they want to stop all suffering in the animal world. So if this guy asked this to me, I would say, how do we determine what suffering is necessary? How do we determine something is suffering? How do we determine something is being harmed and what's necessary or not? But also, okay, so if we should stop all unnecessary harm and suffering, what about insects eating other insects? What about animals eating other animals? What about, our chickens?
That'll be necessary, right? Yeah. That'll be necessary.
It's natural. They say, oh, well, that's just natural. We're interfering in their natural life. You say, well, how do you determine what's natural?
We have special pleading, and we have the appeal to nature fallacy.
Yeah, and human beings are apparently not natural in their worldview too. So everything's nature except human beings in their worldview.
Great point. Yes, another version of special pleading. Yeah.
And also trying to reconcile their deep knowledge that there is a fall and that the natural world is fallen, right? But without actually adhering to the truth of the theology of the fall, right? Like everybody sees that the world is fallen, but they're unable to reconcile it or describe it in their worldview without proper theology. And that's why I think it's important to read stuff, to read like the Church Fathers and to actually understand why we have such a weird interpretation of nature.
They'll also appeal to authority too. Like this guy, when he's out here doing this kind of stuff, he was doing it with the professor too, where he's like, well, we all know climate change, international institutions, right? They'll do this thing where it's like, we all know, and that's just not just the appeal to nature, but the appeal to authority, that these international institutions have declared that the sun has no connection to climate and humans are the cause of the change in the climate. Those are appeals to authority.
Yeah, we're obviously in the sixth mass extinction. This is the sixth mass extinction. The world is dying. Everybody is dying. Extinction Rebellion. We're here trying to save the world, to save the planet. And if you all just go vegan and eat the kibble and cut off your genitals and abort all your babies, we will definitely stop the climate crisis. And there's so many ways that you can approach this, that you can debunk it, but they always pick the normies who are never going to challenge them on this stuff.
Exactly.
And if somebody does challenge them, will they edit it into it? I don't think so.
No.
Right. I don't think so.
I would add too that I do want to make one clarification, because somebody will probably make a point about this. So in the cases of appeal to authority, or in the cases of appealing to scientific journals and papers, I'm obviously not saying that you can't ever bring in the testimony of an authority or an expert or appeal to a paper. The point is that you're not going to solve a large-scale question by appealing to specific papers, because this is known as the underdetermination of data problem in philosophy, is that specific instances of data cannot tell you which paradigm explanations are necessarily true or false. You can have a lot of data that can fit perfectly into two different paradigms. Yep. So you might have to end up comparing the two paradigms.
3, 2, 1, 0. When's it come? Now it's back. It's like it goes out for 10, 15 seconds when it does. Yeah. Hey, you hear me now?
Back.
All
You
right.
bet.
Cool. Yeah, all right, so let's listen to him finish up with the professor here, with the good professor.
I mean, you know, they say they have all these ethical methods of killing. That sounds like an oxymoron.
It does.
You could say there is some cost to eating meat, but there is some benefit to eating meat, that it tastes nice. Maybe that's squared. Maybe ethically it's not quite squared.
I mean, what do you think? Do you think that sensory pleasure can justify violence?
No, that seems to be darker, to be honest. That seems
Well,
to be,
when we say it like that?
Yeah.
How would we morally justify the act?
Oh, I'm not sure you could.
Do you think that the act of buying the animal products then is kind of contradicting your own morals?
Possibly. It's, again, something, if I started thinking about more deeply, I would contemplate doing different kinds of things.
Something I'm keen to talk to you about is kind of looking at an argument from consistency. So if we imagine...
My arguments are completely inconsistent, and that's the nature of...
Well, I appreciate the
being
honesty.
human.
Do you think that the sensory pleasure, like the taste pleasure we get from the animals, is that more important than their life and their suffering?
It's the sacrifice I'm willing to take. Yeah.
But in any other context, would you accept pleasure as a good enough justification for violence?
And you got me stumped.
No, that's fair enough. I appreciate I'm putting you on the spot here, you know.
Then we go into the whole realm of, Jainism, where every life is exactly equal, and obviously some people won't take it that far. But
I mean, I don't agree with that.
But then you could say they'll look at you and say, "How dare you? You're inhumane for killing the fly."
No, but see, I wouldn't kill the fly. I mean, I don't believe a fly is equal to me or you, but that doesn't mean I need to kill them, I suppose. Do you think?
So he doesn't believe the fly is equal, right? So he's being speciesist here. He's being arbitrary. So what makes it different? What makes a fly different from a human? Herbie Hancock, come on, man.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting that they think that name the trait is so powerful, and I guess again from the vantage point of naturalism, it would be a really powerful. If I accept all his assumptions about metaphysics and epistemology and ethics, naturalism, yeah, it's a pretty solid argument, but you haven't justified your starting point, and that's where ironically all of philosophy goes. This is actually this is illustrative, because if you have the normie kind of empiricist approach, this is kind of where you would be led if you follow along this train of thought.
Yeah. Well, you'd be led into any. You could be led into any nonsense, degenerate activity you want. It could be justified, right? There's a way that you could frame an argument for the normie kind of the naturalist worldview, where you could justify almost anything, right? You can justify mass murder as well as a normie. It's just evolution. Like, don't you want to win evolution? Well, let's kill all the males and take the females and breed them, right? I mean, it's like you win evolution if you do that. It's just might makes right. So I think the materialistic worldview, it's not able to refute much of anything, and it's not able to hold its own ground against much of anything. I think that's kind of the ultimate, my ultimate takeaway here from a lot of these vegan arguments. Most normies fall prey to this stuff, and it's not hard for them to fall prey to it.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why you got to know basic philosophy. And I think what we've been trying to outline here today is understanding basic fallacies. If you want to print out, just, go online, print out the list of like basic fallacies, and if you're aware of just a few of the more obvious ones, you'll be doing pretty good. Because most of the time, 90% of the time, you're getting ad hominem, you're getting straw man, you're getting bandwagon, you're getting appeal to authority, you're getting appeal to nature. Those are usually the.
All right, now it's gonna come back. All right. Well, I see the pattern in how my internet goes in and out, and I'm gonna try and get this ironed out with my service provider. Thank you to everybody for all the generous super chats. Let me come over here and see if there's any super chats left. it is exhausting debating these vegans, but it falls apart really quickly if you ask them the right questions and you turn their questions right around on them. So if you guys want to debate the scientific aspects of veganism, you want to debate the science of plant-based versus omnivorous versus carnivorous diet, you guys have at it. But I'm all about what really works. It's about what works in your individual context, what works in your situation as far as diet goes. You want to eat a plant-based diet, I got no problem with it. You can do that. I'm absolutely fine with it. If you want to force it on the world and try to take away our animals and our right to feed our kids and our right to feed ourselves, and if you're going to poison kids with your nutrient-deficient diet and starve your kids with it, I think that's problematic, and I think that's morally wrong. So is veganism a moral obligation, Jay?
No, it cannot justify its ethical assumptions in any sense at all. So therefore, its argumentation is entirely not convincing.
There you go. All right, we got Eric Partello sent a super chat, says, "Keep up the good fight, guys." Thanks a lot. Really appreciate that. Into the Further sent a $5 super chat, says, "Vegan NNT. What about the opposite, NTT, that makes wild animals okay to eat meat but not humans?" Exactly. You turned it right around on them. Name the trait. Name the trait, vegans. Why can wild animals eat animals but humans can't? All right, guys. That's it. Thanks a lot for joining, everybody. You can find more at primaledgehealth.com. Make sure to check out Jay's channel. Where can they find your work, Jay? And what can they expect from you moving forward?
Yeah, you can just go to Jay's Analysis, and that's my website. You can go to my YouTube channel, Jay Dyer, and this week we covered some really interesting stuff relating to ancient cults and heresies that have popped back up. We covered an interview last night with Nina Vizentina about psychopaths, and then I did a video yesterday on the movie Gretel and Hansel, which is kind of a weird, trippy witchcraft telling of the Gretel and Hansel story. It's a new movie that's out.
Cool. All right, so I'm sure Jay will come back on at some point to do another stream. We had talking about, let's see, we had the book, the Changing Images of Man, and I was gonna tie this in with some stuff too. I think this is such an important document as far as social engineering goes. What we see with all this whole vegan movement as well, and the pushing of New Age philosophy, the use of universities and media for the programming of the masses into this new vision of what man is and man's place in the universe. Because just like we're talking about here, man being made in the image and likeness of God completely refutes the vegan argumentation if you use this properly and if you actually understand this. Now, they're trying to reshape and reformat our relationship with ourselves, our vision of what we think we are, where we come from, and where we're going. So the Changing Images of Man, this book by the Stanford Research Institute, the Center for the Study of Social Policy at SRI International. Joseph Campbell was involved in this. Very, very interesting one. We're going to talk about this soon. Maybe we'll do a multi-part series on this and tie this into some of what we see as far as cultural zeitgeist and the social engineering goes. But you guys can find more primaledgehealth.com. Become a member of the website if you guys want to get exclusive content. We've got some fun. I did a couple of funny debates with vegans on Instagram. You could find those videos in our membership section in our private forum. We do twice monthly coaching calls on there as well, and you get discounts on everything that we got on our website. I want to thank you guys for supporting. If you want to support via PayPal, you can, and you are encouraged to. You know, these videos get demonetized, they get hidden in the algorithm, and we appreciate all your guys' support. We appreciate everybody here who's sending them super chats. Let's see, Location 515, I see you sent some nice fat super chats today. Thanks, man. Let's see, OK's up in the chat. OK's always here moderating the chat. We've got the Norwegian Noose who stopped by. We had my buddy Carnivore stop by. So a lot of we want to thank all the bigots in the chat for hanging out. And thank you guys for supporting the work we do. Make sure to check out Jay's Analysis. And I'm out of here, guys.
Awesome, dude. Thank you.
Yeah, all right, we're done.